Sir, do we think that's such a?
You don't do a window for. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Put my microphone on. Good evening.
Just like that.
I'm sorry? Yeah, I do need a gavel, but no, I don't need a gavel. Good evening, everyone. This is 6:33. This is Thursday, April 24th, our regularly scheduled fourth Thursday meeting of the Davis Human Relations Commission. And we are also observing Holocaust Remembrance Day today. Our first item of business is the roll call. If you would call roll, please.
Absolutely. Commissioner Alvarez. Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Gorman.
Here.
Commissioner Kaplan. Here. Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Commissioner Pickett. Here. Commissioner Tamini. Here. Commissioner Edgar Wong Chen.
Here.
First name too.
Special. And then I'll note, we've got our ex officio Megan Macklin here. And Sawyer Bob, okay, our new ex officio from DJSC. And then we also have Councilmember Diaz. This is our deputy city clerk, one of them, Lisa, and Lisa is going to be joining us from here on out, I think. And we'll be taking minutes and providing all sorts of support. I'm super excited to have her.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. We have a quorum. We appreciate the attendance. I want to welcome Sawyer to the commission. We have two high school students who are ex officios appointed by the school district. Sawyer is one of them, and I think you guys will be trading off, and so your colleague will join us perhaps in the future. But we're very excited to have both of you looking forward to your contributions to the commission and to the discussions that we have. It's really important that we have voices of young people in this process. So thank you very much. And I want to just invite you before we begin. So if you want to introduce yourself at all, or say hello.
This thing on? Okay. Hi, I'm Sawyer Ba. I'm a high school student at Da Vinci High. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We look forward to it. All right. Let me then ask others and staff if there are any other announcements. This is item 3 on our agenda, brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and liaisons.
Kevin, can you do an approval of the agenda, please?
Oh, I always skip approval of the agenda. Gosh. Okay. Well, luckily I have great colleagues here to correct me. Before we do anything further, we need to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, I move that we approve it.
Felix moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks. Any seconds? All those in favor then, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We are now at brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and liaisons. And I'm just going to open it up to members of the commission and staff, as well as our liaison, Councilmember Diaz, for any brief announcements that folks would like to share.
I don't have any of this.
Others? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 4. This is general public comment. And just to clarify, there will also be an opportunity for public comment for items listed on the agenda when we take up each item. This general public comment period is for folks who would like to comment on matters that are not listed on the agenda or are listed on the consent calendar, or in addition, if you're unable to stay later in the meeting when the item that you wish to speak on would otherwise come up, then please feel free to take advantage of the opportunity to speak now in the general public comment period. We do ask that folks speak only once on any item, whether it's now or when the item is taken up. And I just wanted to note, for anyone who may be unfamiliar with the public comment process, we follow the same protocol as the city council, and I believe other city commissions, for both general public comment and specific public comments on particular items on the agenda. In the interest of conducting business in a timely fashion and allowing everyone to have an opportunity to speak, individuals offering comment are allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. And we ask that everyone please stay within the allotted time frame. There is a timer here facing the podium, so you'll be able to track how much time is remaining. And then, of course, just to maintain respectful decorum, we ask that folks not respond during or after other public comments. So it includes clapping, cheering, booing, etc. And I just also wanted to note, because I think it's a little bit awkward or unnatural at times, or can be, that we on the commission are not allowed to really engage in back and forth dialogue with folks who are offering public comment, even though it might seem odd at times to do that. But even though we are not allowed to address public comment, please do know that we are listening and we are eager to hear community members' input, any concerns and any information that folks would like to share. We do ask that you direct your comments to the commission rather than to other members who may be present in the public. And then I think it might just be useful to know, I know that we have an item on the agenda tonight that did generate a significant interest in the past, and this is the report on the MAPA issue. And I just wanted to see if we might be able to get a show of hands if there are folks who could indicate whether they're interested in speaking on that item, just so I can have a sense of how to manage the flow of that. So if you are interested, you don't have to commit, but I just, okay, thank you. That will just help us give a sense of how much time to allow. Okay, with that introduction, let me just ask Carrie, before we begin the general public comment period, if we've received any general public comment in writing before the meeting.
We have, I believe it was about 15 written public comments. They're located in the binder in the back, along with the agenda and packet for the public to look at.
Thank you very much. All right, with that introduction, then let's open general public comment, item number 4. Again, this is for matters that are not on the agenda or listed on the consent calendar, or if you're unable to stay when the item would otherwise come up later in the agenda. Please come forward. Mr. Hirsch, good evening.
Good evening, Alan Hirsch. The way we solve problems is with dialogue, how to make the dialogue, and there has to be space available for it. And I know under the Brown Act, you can't respond to general public comment, but when things are on the agenda, they are free. You can talk to people in the audience. You can call people up for second and third public comments. That is in the committees. Committees can, if you want to do that during items that are on the agenda. One. Second, space where we have space for public comment and dialogue and interaction will reach the public outside of the social media and the thing is our farmers market. That's where we have groups, the Yankees, Griswold, the Democratic Socialists, these toxic groups that puts up the cartoons, which I think are anti-Semitic or whatever. We can expose all that. Plus, explore it, a bunch of churches on it. That's all in the farmer's market. And people walk by and people learn about what's in the community and get asked and engage people if they so want to. But the Davis Farmers Market Manager is closing it down this Saturday. They are moving all those community booths and all those political booths to the far west side of the market in an unpaved area, unshaded area. Because they say they need more space for food vendors. If you go to the farmers, you'll see empty spaces. And if there's not enough space in the free speech area, they put up 3 bike racks in that area. At one time, there were 40 booths in the farmers, the free speech area during October of 2018. Now there's 15 and there's not enough space. The city's closing down our dialogue space, our community space, where we can meet with one another, where we can talk to one another. This is a bit of a crisis. Is this some message to the community that we don't want to have space where people can engage and reach out and tell their story in the first half versus restrict the 3-minute speech where we can't even have dialogue? This is pretty outrageous, I think. The city washed and said, oh, we delegated this to the farmer's market manager. But the farmer's market manager doesn't have authority over the rest of the park. And she, Randy Pinderry, operates under the auspices of the city general manager. This is pretty critical. We're losing our community space. We're losing our space where we can talk about things, where we can engage. When Amir and I, David Siegel and I can talk about things. We meet each other and have formal conversations. We learn how to have dialogue. We're losing that. That's a pretty great loss for the community. Wherever you think on whatever issue it is, if we don't have that community space for a dialogue, where are we? Reduced to our social media silos? That's pretty sad, and the city doesn't want it. The city doesn't take me up for it. They don't want to speak up for that. Maybe they just want to control everything, so just the official version comes in. I don't know. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Reem Al-Roshmawi, and I apologize for not coming to speak at the MAPA report time, but I'm actually going to see a Syrian rapper at the Mondavi night, and I'm all ready for that. And so I apologize for not being able to be here to kind of join you in that dialogue and that conversation. And I appreciate Alan for bringing up the farmers market thing, because I'm actually looking into that. But I just wanted to say that 100% having the report that was done at the last HRC meeting was so important. I've been in Davis since 1987. We went through a lot post 9/11 with our community, and luckily our community joined together and we did Lessons of a Peaceful World. We did all of these events to kind of bring things together to work on things. I don't know if any of you were here in Davis in the early 2000s, but there was a real community spirit, a real gathering of all of us who worked together within our school district, across the city, across the county, to make sure that everybody was heard, to make sure that we were not having racist things against our kids, to protect our children. That kind of thing hasn't happened in a while. I mean, our community has been facing things for a while and nobody listens to us. We're considered, oh, you know, we bring up something, it's a little bit like we're supposed to not only have racist things said to us, we're not supposed to just like be ignored in our school district. We're just supposed to have all these things happen and nobody's supposed to listen. Nobody's supposed to document. And having this report was so important because you are documenting. At the last meeting, people came forth and were like saying, oh, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. I'm sorry, this was our community's message. There were surveys, most of it anonymous because we're already getting targeted. People are losing their jobs. People are being picked up on the street for having opinions about Palestine, about being Arab American, about all these things. We're being picked up, literally kidnapped off the street because of this. And because, you know, we had a subcommittee that actually sent out a message to our community and said, what is happening? What are you feeling? What is happening to your kids? And because of that, we have to hear things like, you're a liar, you're this and that. I'm sorry, nobody else is here proving their humanity, and we're not coming here to prove our humanity. We're coming here to say, we need these recommendations listened to, we need us to be heard, we need our community to come together for our community also. We all come together, we come together for everyone else. Why is it not okay for us to have our children protected? our families are allowed to say what is their truth and be listened to and respected. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Evening.
Alan Miller, citizen of Davis. 3 minutes, I feel like I can breathe. I'd like to introduce you to my friend, the donkey-headed adversary of humanity. He will now open the discussion. I went to the city council meeting and I pointed out that I came to this meeting last time and I said, hard as it was to find by day or location. And I said, you know, I saw these two groups that wanted to put on things and I recommended that, you know, they either cooperate or compete. Please, you all do not get involved in that. And seconds later, you get involved in it. So I just, it seems like, okay, so you have two groups of Jews who completely disagree on stuff and, you know, nothing more basic than the existence of Israel. And then, I mean, but would you do that? Like if you had two Muslim sects or you had two native tribes that were competing about a casino and hated each other. I mean, would you say, oh, you want to put on a Native American Heritage Day and, but you have to work with this other tribe. Everybody has to be represented. I don't see that's your role. So I noticed another thing is that at the city council meeting, there were people who were getting up and saying, wow, this is a really dysfunctional commission and is maybe toxic. And then there were other people who got up and said, this is the greatest commission ever. And maybe I do not have a perfect judge of who is a Zionist or an anti-Zionist, but I pretty much noticed that, you know, the people that I know, the anti-Zionists really thought you all were great. And those who believe in the existence of Israel thought this was a toxic commission. So, you know, things that make you go, yeah, I remember that goddamn 5 or 6 hour meeting where I was here till 2 in the morning and I had COVID and gave it to everybody. I didn't know I had COVID until the next morning. And the thing was, that was just toxic. It was just people trying to win points. It was people trying to be the biggest victims. And I just see that just playing itself out right here. And to what end? I mean, wouldn't it be better to set up something where we tried to learn about what we were each concerned about? And what, you know, get some humanity from that? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, someone else is coming forward. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Robert Hall, related to West Davis, and at the risk of sounding sarcastic, I'd like to thank you for 4 words mentioning the Holocaust and commemorating it today. I don't see anything else on the agenda at all today, on this day, you know, the mother of all genocides, and not one mention, no opportunity taken to learn from it. No on this agenda is other than your 4 words, which I thank you for, is the commemoration of such a vicious attempt to slaughter one culture of people.
Thank you for coming. All right, we have someone else coming forward. Good evening.
Dan Avadia, lived in Davis for 30 years. Yeah, I agree. Today is Holocaust Memorial Day, and that's why more of our community is not here. So I'm here to say a few things not related to the agenda. So look, US Rep out of New York, Richie Torres, made a great comment regarding the attempted assassination of Josh Shapiro in Pittsburgh. Corey Balmer, an anti-Semite arsonist, attempted assassin, hurled a Molotov cocktail into the official residence of Governor Josh Shapiro, endangering the lives of the governor, his wife, and his children. The attempted assassination of a Jewish governor on a Jewish holiday is a chilling reminder of the deep rot of anti-Semitism in America, and a rot that has only festered and increased since October 7th. To those who deny the nefarious nexus between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, Palmer scapegoated Israel as a pretext for his hatred of Jews. The demonization of Israel is the modern mask for the same ancient hatred. So, Davis has a problem. I've spoken about it before. Last night, I was a victim of an assault on campus. I was sitting in Young Hall 192, Revolutionary Student Union, Students for Justice in Palestine leadership was there. I sat in the room, a public meeting in a public university funded by public taxpayer dollars. I was targeted, identified as a Jew and a Zionist. And I was physically attacked by an individual after consulting with the leadership from SJP. I defended myself without any violence. I fended off the attack, which lasted approximately 2 minutes. The police came and the individual was arrested. Anyone who thinks that what we are talking about is not a serious issue is misrepresenting the problem we are talking about. It is okay to be anti-war. It is okay to be against warfare and killing of innocents, completely fine. We cannot conflate the issue with support for terrorism, violence, criminal activity, which is occurring in this town and is occurring in Davis and happened to me. In fact, Cops Off Campus, in which Connor Gorman is affiliated with, was involved in an attack at UC Davis as well. A massive attack by Antifa on this campus. How can this commission claim to represent anything when you have commissioners supporting violence? Kevin?
Sir? Okay, thank you for your comment. Anyone else then who would like to come forward for general public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on then to item 5. This is the consent calendar. There is one item on the consent calendar, that is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. So let me ask first if there's any public comment that anyone would like to offer on the minutes of our last meeting. Seeing none, we bring it back to the commission and ask if there are any additions, corrections, etc. to the meeting minutes. And if not, then we can entertain a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting.
Motion.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second from Felix, thank you. Any discussion then on the minutes of the meeting, minutes of the last meeting? Okay, all then in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we are on then to regular items. This is item 6. Our first regular item is our public forum on recent hate incidents in the Davis community. This is a standing item that we have at our regular monthly meetings to allow for input and discussion of any recent hate incidents that may have occurred. I'm always happy, as I've frequently said, to hear that there aren't any hate incidents, but I know that that always is a possibility. So this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we are talking about those kinds of issues on a regular basis. So as a public forum item, folks should feel free to come forward to alert us or inform us of any issues that they would like to raise, and we also have an opportunity for discussion by commission members. you so much for coming forward, Mr. Miller. Good evening.
Alan Miller, I don't know, that guy who just spoke, that sounded like a hate incident. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you can be ejected from a public meeting or assaulted in a public meeting on a public university for any reason, except if you're violent or something.
Thank you for coming. Any other folks willing to come forward? If not,
Can you repeat it one more time? We're trying to catch up.
I'm sorry, there was a question, but I didn't.
Can you repeat what we're coming?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is item 6A, public forum on recent hate incidents in the Davis community. If there are issues that folks want to bring forward, or including members of the commission, but I wanted to open up first to the public to make sure that people had an opportunity to come forward to alert us to any issues that you might want to raise. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else coming forward, so then let's bring it back to the commission, and I'm sorry. There's someone who's coming forward.
Thanks for the opportunity, Kevin.
Absolutely.
There was an incident actually on campus. And I know campus is not the jurisdiction of this commission, but it is representative of the hatred the Jewish community is receiving for the last 18 months. So there was on the main quad a protest by Students for Justice in Palestine. And here's a direct quote of what they said. People waver the most to support the right of resistance against Zionism by any means necessary. This doesn't mean supporting resistance through art or literature or existence. This means supporting armed resistance first and foremost. Armed resistance first and foremost. Armed resistance is the foundation of the Palestinian movement towards liberation. It's something you need to fully support. And you cannot say you are part of this movement at all if you don't. There is a narrative that we say, free Palestine, but we don't agree with what resistant movements are doing. This is false. We need to back the resistance proudly. Keep in mind, Hamas does not use the word terrorism. They use the word resistance. So anyone who's using the word resistance is using Hamas talking points. They don't believe killing civilians, babies, and mothers is terrorism. They believe it's resistance. So we have a student group on campus for the last 18 months, which has been supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, PFLP, that in the open, in front of Jewish students, staff, and faculty, are calling for armed resistance and targeting of Zionists. Armed resistance means terrorism. Zionist means Jews. It is propaganda. We know what the code words mean. We take it very seriously. This is what we have been exposed to. This is not freedom of speech. We're talking criminal activity. It is targeted at Jews. Very few of us want to stand up. Few of us do.
Thank you for coming forward. Okay, is there anyone else? I'm seeing someone who's approaching. Mr. Hirsch, welcome.
Use of language is fascinating. In the Holocaust Museum, they translated the Jewish uprising in Warsaw as an intifada. Okay, that's the word means resistance, so you can translate it any way you want to. I find it interesting that Zionism is Judaism. When we had the previous speaker who pointed out there are some number of Jews that are allegedly anti-Zionist. I think the conflagration of Zionism and Judaism is a falsehood. It's not part of Judaism. It's turning the physical state, the state of Israel, into an idol. You can be. Seems like you can ignore God, ignore the Jewish law, ignore everything, as long as you believe in Israel. And that's to take a secular state and turn it into something that can't be argued with or contested or challenged. Jewish homeland, right, but a state that gives one ethnic set a priority over another, that is not pluralistic, and that could be questioned. Maybe Jews have a unique right to that. We can argue about that, but I think the argument is the important thing, and Jews argue about that. So people will say, conflate Zionism with Judaism. That is a heresy, I think, but maybe I'm the heretic, like Spinoza, like many other Jews. There are Jewish heretics who were thrown out. And I think there's a bit of a move among some Jews to basically label other Jews as non-Jewish. I don't think that's right. I don't think Zionism is coterminous with Judaism. There has been some questions arise why the Jews for Justice and the Social Justice Committee wanted to be part of the Jewish American Heritage event. There was a split in the Jewish community in the 20s and 30s. There was a rise of Hebrew. Hebrew was invented as a new secular language, and people in Israel actually were beat up if they spoke Yiddish on the street. Yiddish was a European language. That was the language that's American culture. The Yiddish theater, the Yiddish cultural Yiddish magazines were in the United States, not in Israel. There was a split in the Jewish community. So basically, Jewish American heritage is different than the Israeli American heritage. These are very different. And I think people who have that sense of American heritage need to be represented in the community, not the people who basically think Zionism and Judaism are coterminous, which they are not. They are not. Thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no one else coming forward then, we'll bring it back to the dais and ask if there are comments, thoughts, etc.
Sawyer might know more than I do, but there was an incident with a swastika drawn somewhere at Da Vinci High School. Do you know more than I do about it? I know it's being investigated as hate speech, as the school always would, and I don't think we've quite figured out the details of it yet, but that is a hate incident to report. Do you know any more than I do?
I think I probably know about what you do, just that it happened.
So you know the time frame, what are we talking? I didn't catch.
Last week?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Feels like I haven't been reporting that's happening pretty frequently. At least once a month, we all get an email, sometimes I won't aware of it individually because, some of the kids say that, but we get those mass emails. And that's not an unusual event.
As far as I know, at our school, this is the first time in a while. We had an incident last year. The N-word, I think this is at our little school, but yeah, there's many schools in Davis. So.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Are there others who'd like to weigh in on that issue or others?
I'm a teacher at North Davis, and we've had several incidents this year. I think the most recent was the swastika and the N-word in an elementary school bathroom. But it's pretty regular. And also the students saying things like that to it.
I'm not sure if you're going to be picked up on audio, but I think your comments are important.
Do you want me to come down?
If you would, actually, that might be helpful.
I wasn't sure if it was too late.
No,
I forgot.
I mean, we should be, I think we should be flexible here.
Yeah, so I'm Elise Bruin. I am a teacher at North Davis Elementary, and we've had, I know it's supposed to be the last month, but over the last year, we've had a lot of graffiti, a couple swastikas, some N-words, some other things. And the students, some of the students have kind of just stopped reporting to us. I found out recently because there's just a lot of racism, anti-Semitism, sexism. So we're kind of figuring out how to address that. And actually, I came here because I'm considering trying to join. I think there's an opening on this commission, and that's my main concern, just that our young people are kind of swimming in this right now. And I don't think most adults are aware.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious for those folks who know the school district. I haven't been a member of district and I don't have children in the district. I'm sure that this is something that the district takes very seriously and has mechanisms for addressing, but I wonder if anybody can speak to that at all?
Well, yeah,
Not that we can, like,
sorry, yeah, emails, as Lainey mentioned, I think, the emails are sent out, or here. Yeah, emails are sent out regularly to parents anytime that one of these events occurs. At least, I'm not sure just if you're following along with PTA or any of the DJUSD lists. An alert or something like this happens.
I was just gonna note that unfortunately Kate Snow's not here. I think she would be able to give us quite a list of things that they are doing. I know that there are some constituency groups that they're forming. Mostly, I think primarily focusing on bringing the staff together of different groups to talk about issues with the school, but also issues they're facing, depending on what group they're from. And I think there are also a couple of climate related things that they're doing to address some of this. Liking on the wording that they use when they describe these incidents is not hate, but it's something in that realm. And so I know that there are a couple of actions they're doing, but Kate would be the best person to speak to them, so.
yeah, that's a good point, and maybe we can.
I remember the name. Dehumanizing language is the name of the, sort of like they're working on how to address dehumanizing language for all different groups that are facing that on campuses.
Teachers our professional development theme this year has been anti-bias training and learning how to identify and respond to dehumanizing language and just to recognize our own biases and make sure that we're not perpetuating like an atmosphere in our classroom where any kind of dehumanizing language or biases are supported or encouraged. And there's mandatory suspension followed by a restorative practices process of some kind for anything that is determined to be identity-based harm that is done. So that's like our sort of dehumanizing language is identity-based, either verbal or graffiti or anything like that. So I know the school district is trying to take it seriously. It does not seem to be solving the problem yet, but I feel a lot of effort around it.
I just want to state the obvious that, this is obviously happening in DJUSD, but this is reflective of us, of this community. Those kids are not bringing it from thin air, right? So I think that's, the DJUSD, they have some authority over those kids, so they can do some stuff that, for adults, there's no one to discipline us adults unless it's like criminal, right? So I think that tells us all, again, that, we have a problem in this community.
I was just gonna add that within DJUSD, there's a student advisory, Superintendent Methodist and Kate Snow and a group of students that is like working on like gathering student input on how to combat dehumanizing language within the district.
I would just ask city staff, and Carrie, I don't know if you have any information about this at all, but picking up on the point Amir was just making, these forms of, these types of actions can take the form of the graffiti that we're hearing about in some of the schools. But as Amir was noting, they're not, those views aren't necessarily, those problems aren't necessarily limited to children. Probably not, right? So I'm just wondering, is there anybody in the city, and maybe it's the police department, or maybe it's code enforcement or something that tracks any sort of, these kinds of incidents outside of the district?
I don't have an exact answer for you. It would be PD and code enforcement, which is part of PD, that would be dealing with those and also doing the graffiti abatement. So I do think it's something that I can certainly look into to see if there are records kept as to how many incidents of graffiti that they're needing to clean up, if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, just a thought occurred to me, maybe I'll look into it. Still got a lot on your plate.
So many of those events, they don't end up at the police. But as you notice, many of those events are targeting a specific group, and that specific group is tallying and documenting. So we definitely have, we have been documenting, I don't know that all of these events, but many of these events, right? So we have tallied that.
When you say we, Amir,
The Jews in town.
right, just for others who might not be clear. Okay. Other comments, questions, thoughts, etc. on this? We have somebody coming forward. I'm gonna just invite people to, to be part of this discussion. So I think it's important. I think maybe slightly outside of the bounds of what I'm supposed to do, but
I apologize. My name is Sarah Rubelt. I'm a counselor, family therapist here in Davis, love Davis, and really believe in connections, building bridges, and unity. And there's a gentleman person in this town named Sandy Coleman, who has written amazing children's books like We All Have a Heritage. And I know that she's been trying to reach the district, the school district, because she has incredible ideas to promote, because most of us counselors as well as educators are seeing what's being discussed. A lot of hate, rising violence. This is impacting all of us in terms of climate. And I like to see more actions taken to create that safety for everyone, because everyone deserves safety in Davis. So thank you for your time.
thank you for coming forward. I'm going to take one more because I've let others speak, and so please come.
Thank you, Brian. So I think one thing that Alumni said that I think we really need to pick up on is that the kids stop reporting. They don't feel the trust from the school districts. I know my daughter had, her record is 9 hides in one period. That's the record. She stopped reporting to us. Sometimes, like one day we heard from the principal the story about what your kid had to go through yesterday, because she doesn't feel comfortable. It just, there's a problem, there's a lot of hate. We need to do something about it.
Thank you for coming forward. Okay, we just see, I think we are about ready, a little bit past time on this item. We have a speaker who is going to be joining us next. So if there isn't any further discussion, I think we can move on. I don't want to cut people off with anything else that folks would like to add.
Are we not gonna, like, people don't have any ideas about what we can do other than just listen? Listening is important. We should try and come up with ideas to actually counteract that. Isn't that part of our job?
Yeah, and specifically, Amir, do you have a thought or a proposal
I
about
know that, I'd like to have a discussion. Like, I hope that after people came and shared, we would have a discussion.
Right, I guess I'm trying to understand, a lot of the comments have been around the school district, and you've noted appropriately that certainly wouldn't be limited to kids in the school district. I'm just trying to understand, are you asking for a discussion or suggesting a discussion around school district issues, which you can't really weigh in on, or something else?
So is it something we could agendize when Kate Snow is here? We do have a lot, we can't really ask the school district to do anything specific, but like everybody here is touched by what happens in the school. So there's like kind of a new process of how we get things agendized. Could it be like, if we're not going to discuss it now because we've got lots of things on the agenda, but is it something we could agendize to at least brainstorm? Maybe we could even invite somebody from the school district here to have a conversation with us. What would be like reasonable next steps for continuing the conversation? Not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Lainey. I think that having when Kate Snow is here, a discussion about this makes a lot of sense.
I've met with Kate Snow and Matt Best about a lot of these issues, and I got a lot of information that I feel would be much better if it came directly from Kate. She'll remember the names and all the people involved. But I think it will be helpful for people to know what they're doing. I don't think anybody's gonna feel like it's gonna be enough, because we're always gonna wish that there's more. I know that they are putting some actions in place though, and we should have those in our mind as we have a discussion about what could help beyond what they're doing. So, I agree, Lainey, I think when we have a meeting with Kate Snow, and perhaps part of that is also asking other folks from the district, not just Kate, to give us an idea of what they're dealing with and how they're handling it.
Yeah, I think it's a fine suggestion and it's a comment that we speak to.
Yeah, so this also ties into the subcommittee on different ways to report hate incidents in town. And so far, that subcommittee has mostly discussed having a variety of reporting mechanisms and hasn't really gone into what to do with those reports beyond talking about trying to use them in a way to build a more positive community. But it's very difficult to figure out the best way to do that. So I think that subcommittee is very much like related to this. But I would also be very interested in what the school district has been doing. And I know Kate Snow has mentioned before some of the interventions that they have applied. So I would be very interested in learning more about those and if those could be expanded beyond the school district to the wider community. Obviously, as people have said, it's harder to do that with adults who are not like in a school system, but there's still presumably ways to use some of those similar ideas. So yeah, I'd be very interested in what the school district has to say, what Kate Snow has to say, and what Sandy Holman has to say.
Thank you, Felix.
Yeah, could this be something that also, we do have our subcommittee to investigate documented incidents of anti-Semitism. This is something that perhaps has been discussed within that subcommittee or could be added to the things that you guys are discussing, because I think we are working on this within this subcommittee. And I hope you guys weren't inviting me to things while I wasn't here last meeting, but I am gonna maybe advise you to extend that invitation to Kate. Maybe she can come in and join a couple of our meetings and maybe talk about what the school is doing regarding these incidents and as it relates to anti-Semitism. Not to add more things to what you guys are already working on, but could be a good idea, I know we just limited time to work on it here, and that's why the subcommittees work.
Okay, thanks, Marcus. Okay, thanks for that discussion. I think it was very helpful, and I think it's a good plan to follow up with colleague Kate Snow on this issue further. And find out what else is going on in the city as well outside of the school district. Okay, I think that we are ready then to move on. We have a presentation by a representative of the Civil Rights Department of the State of California, the Community Conflict Resolution Unit. That would be Kendra, who is hopefully going to be joining us by video. And I'm going to ask her.
Good evening. Hi, we're here. We're from the Civil Rights Department and the Community Conflict Resolution Unit. My name is Kendra Tanacha. I'm a senior attorney mediator with the unit, and I'm here with Marquez Equilibria, and he is the Assistant Deputy Director of the Community Conflict Resolution Unit, or CREW, which is how we refer to it.
Let me just stop for a second, and thank you for that introduction, Kendra. Can folks hear? I'm wondering if we have any ability to.
Where's the audio coming from? Because I feel like it's coming from these little things.
Turned up the audio a smidge. Kendra, you're a little bit fuzzy on our end. Is there any thoughts that you have?
Can you hear me now?
Is
I think
that
that's a
better?
little better.
All right, we're getting thumbs up, but that's a little bit better. Thank you.
Marquez, can they hear you too?
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, the audio is a little garbled, but we'll just do the best we can. I think unless there's another way to make
Audio's
a
coming
connection.
from here, it needs to come from like something that's more on the global, like, do you know what I mean? It's where everyone is hearing is coming from our little devices here.
What if we can put our microphones by our little devices? Does that help?
That could help actually, and turn it on.
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. No.
Oh, it's on.
Okay. If we could just ask you to hold for just a second, we're trying to see if we can address the audio issue.
We bring back like.
You look beautiful on the screen, but we just don't, we want to capture everything that you might be able to.
I think we're gonna try it.
You got it.
The owl is doing the recording.
Oh, no, but we're hearing it from the owls, we're putting the mic, this mic facing it.
Oh,
and getting
thank you.
closer.
Okay, let's see if that works. Thank you.
Okay. I don't, they're saying.
Testing, hello, is that better?
I'm gonna ask for a show of hands of the audience. The audio any better? Kendra, can you try again?
Testing, testing, hello, here we are.
1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2.
I think it's. I know I wanted to get closer, but they asked us not to move it closer.
You can't change to a different.
Kevin, would you like to continue or do you like a recess?
Well,
I think we can go ahead and continue. I think we've explored almost everything. I've got one more thing I'm going to try, and Lisa can continue to take minutes while the presentation's going. I'm going to just go get a portable microphone and try and stick it right there.
awesome. Okay, thank you, Carrie. I like that suggestion. Kendra Marquez, we are going to proceed, and while you're speaking, we're going to see if we can do anything else to improve the audio on our end. But we're very excited to have you. Thank you for all of your work, and we're interested in hearing how we might possibly be able to benefit from your expertise. So please take it away.
Well, let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right. I am going to share my screen with you all.
Okay, we got it.
All righty. Hopefully you can see the big screen in front of you. Big blue screen says Introduction to the Community Conflict Resolution Unit. I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to share more with you about a wonderful resource within the state that I think, given the conversation I've been hearing, is very relevant. It is the Community Conflict Resolution Unit that is housed under the California Civil Rights Agency. It is composed of 3 individuals. The small but mighty crew is composed of attorney mediators Gregory Mann and Kendra Tenachia, as well as myself. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director of the unit. A little bit about my background is I started with the unit when we started it in 2022. Before that, I was with the Community Relations Service of the U.S. Department of Justice. I was with them for about 13 years. This unit is modeled after that federal organization that was established out of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And we essentially do basically the same thing. And following the coattails of the pandemic, the state realized that it needed to do more in the fight against hate, and it really wanted to invest in a series of options and opportunities. And I'm going to tell you about two others in addition to our unit, some that you may already know about. But I'm really excited to tell you a little bit more about our unit because I think you're going to find that it is very relevant. And my background, I'm not an attorney. I have a master's in conflict resolution, and our attorney mediators, of course, they're civil rights attorneys with incredible background in mediation. Do you want to say a little bit about your background, Kendra? And I am out of Orange County.
Sure. Thanks, Marquez. I am in Sonoma, in the city of Sonoma. My background, I was a class action discrimination plaintiff's lawyer for 32 years in my own practice. And then I went into the Civil Rights Department and did class / group claims like the Activision Blizzard sexual harassment case and the Tastries case, which was a baker in Bakersfield who wouldn't make a cake for a lesbian couple. And so I did some litigation both here at the CRD and mainly in my own private practice. I then moved over to the dispute resolution department where I mediated individual claims, which can be filed with our enforcement department, who does an investigation and offers the parties free mediation services. And then I more recently moved over now to the community conflict resolution unit and enjoy this outward facing role and doing work within the community. Thanks, Marquez.
Yeah. Moving on to what the department is mostly known for. This is the role that you are most likely to have heard, the classical function of the Civil Rights Department. Basically, it's responsible for responding to complaints of discrimination in places such as housing and employment. Now, our unit is a little bit different and very unique because unlike the mission of the Civil Rights Department, which is to protect the people of California using, an enforcement function and litigation, our mission is to promote peaceful relations by assisting communities experiencing fear, conflict, or tensions relating to discriminatory practices, hate incidents, or hate crimes that have a community impact. Really want to uplift that last part, community, because that is what we focus in on. We understand that a lot of times conflict, especially the kind of conflict that comes with hate and bias, discrimination, it really has an impact not just on one individual, but on a whole community. So our focus is to try and work with community groups and a whole variety of groups to try and address those kinds of tensions and conflict. In some ways, we have a similar role to that of your commission. Now, in terms of the groups we work with, we pretty much work with anybody who's a group, anybody who represents people who look out for others, who try and be responsive, advocate for them, to try to protect them. And in that list, you'll notice there's human relation commissions. I've been doing this job in government for about 15 years. A few other years in the nonprofit sector, but in my time in government, I've assisted human relation commissions up and down the state for many years in a variety of cases, and we'll go into examples and how we can assist you. But if you look at that list, you'll see everything from tribal groups to educational groups, law enforcement, government. I mean, again, pretty much anybody who is a group. Now, here's what also makes us, again, stand out of the rest of the Civil Rights Department, why we're, again, different and unique. We're neutral and impartial. So we're not there to assign blame or take sides. We're a third party there to assist everyone in moving forward. And I'll mention how in the next slide. But that also means that we don't have law enforcement authority. So we're not in the business of investigating, fact finding. Obviously then we don't make arrests. We don't pass along information to law enforcement. And that segues into that third one, which is really important in that our work is confidential. So if another government agency, even if our own civil rights department wanted to know, hey, who did you talk to and what did you discuss? We can't share that information with other parts of our department because then otherwise communities wouldn't work with us. They wouldn't trust us. And so again, same goes for any outside agencies that want to know, what we've been discussing. The work is confidential. We ask for permission from groups before we disclose any information with others as part of like some kind of like resolution process that we engage in. Again, we'll discuss that, how we work in the next slide. And lastly, we like to make sure that we work with actual community members as part of the engagement process. That means that in some cases where you might have, for example, advocacy groups that represent other people, we like to make sure that at some point the actual members of that community are involved because we want the priorities that we set to reflect the priorities that they're voicing, that, whatever the concerns are, we want to make sure that our work reflects what they're most concerned about. So here's how we do the work. 5 areas of service. The first one is designing conflict resolution processes. And that means everything like town halls, dialogues. There's different kinds of dialogues. There's or engagements, community engagements. There's those where, you collect information and move it up a chain. Say you're trying to, help government make better decisions about a concerned group of people that don't feel safe. Well, we can, collect the voices of the community and ask them to also provide recommendations. All of this means that we can help with that entire process from like thinking about the goals, the objectives, the agendas, the questions you would ask, the sequence of them, how to do it, the format, layout of the room, all sorts of logistics. Then like, what do you do with the information? How do you process it? Think about it. Like what would be the next steps based on that input? So we can really help with all of that. And there's some, dialogues that really are more about humanization. I heard some of that, tonight in that, sometimes the goal or the objective is not to move information up, but it's actually to have an impact, a transformative process within human beings. That can be, a goal that you also, same thing, we can help with from the goals, the objectives, everything I said previously. That second point right there, facilitating community engagement processes, means that we can actually facilitate them, or we can help you all, of course, to be the lead and you are become the ones to facilitate the process. But, if there's a need, we can certainly step in to facilitate those meetings, but they can also be more simple meetings, initial meetings, like we don't even know where to start with this conversation, what might be some next steps to engage in. Could you kind of just help lead us through an initial conversation about a particular problem that we have in our city? Third, we have education and training. One of the things that we've been doing quite a bit over the last few months is providing some de-escalation training to a few government organizations to help them with teaching them mediation principles, to help them when they engage with members of the public. Sometimes, things escalate. How do you bring that conversation back down? How do you address the human needs involved in a situation? Another one that we're working on, we're trying to finalize, is the hate crimes training to help people understand what the difference is between a hate crime and a hate incident, and the different kinds of hate incidents, from those that violate civil rights laws to those that are protected by free speech, and all the different options related to that, to help people, especially who are in the position to pick up the phone, or they might work for like a nonprofit organization and they get calls from the customers they have, their community, their constituency groups, and to say, oh, okay, this is what happened to you. Well, here are a few options, right? So we can certainly help with that. Then we have another one that I think you might be interested in. This one is a K through 12 training for administrators. This one will be done sometime towards like the end of the year, where it's broken up into 4 modules. The first module teaches administrators or teachers, school staff, like what is the law, what your responsibility is in terms of seeing hate and discrimination on a school campus. What do you have to do? The second module is on how do you promote a positive climate? The third module is on teaching conflict resolution skills, and the fourth module is going to be on systemic changes through something called improvement science. So the goal is to have this as a resource for those decision makers in the district, the people who kind of set policy, who set systems up, who have the ability to implement structural changes to schools. So we can give them something that helps to prevent issues of hate and discrimination on school campuses. And when we look at cases, if we ever spot anything else where we believe we could be of assistance, we'll help with that. So one of the things we do is we're conveners as well. One of the things we did about a year and a half ago was we had a case that involved issues where housing providers weren't properly following, say, disability law, and we wanted to have the stakeholders wanted to have some kind of educational forum to help educate housing providers on what their responsibility is under the law to help with issues of accessibility related to like Americans with Disabilities Act and other state laws. So we helped to convene all the different experts who provided valuable information for that. So again, we don't always have to have the information, but we can help to convene the information. In fact, one of the groups we help that I'm going to be telling you a little bit about in a moment is the Commission on the State of Hate, which does a lot of educational forums, and sometimes we help them out with that, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The other thing we do is technical consultations. That's another way that you can engage us. I've worked with a lot of human relation commissions in the past, and one of the ways that I've done so is through ad hocs that the commission might do. So if there's an area of priority, an area of concern, an ad hoc is created, and while no decisions are made, but they can collect information and then come back to the full commission with like a proposal or an idea to kind of engage in. So that's certainly then a place where through the ad hoc, I can provide information and work with the ad hoc to come up with some kind of proposal that is then brought back to the full commission. But the commissions that I've worked with, some of them have done their own like little dialogues, their own programs to listen to their community. Say there was one I remember following an issue of hate where they wanted to protest against a particular group. The city wanted to have a space to do a dialogue, and this was coming from the mayor. And their question was like, where do we even start? What do we do? So we certainly came up with, I worked with the city leaders to come up with a proposal for that one. Another one that I worked with, and this was before actually working here with Crew, but when I was with the Community Relations Service, again, doing basically identical work, is working with one commission that did a lot of work with schools, did 2 yearly events on a systemic basis. I mean, they pretty much had this going year after year after year. And one was to do almost like a conference for students. So they were pretty well connected and in working in partnership with the school district. And this is something I would recommend you consider, is having liaisons from the school district and from law enforcement to consider doing like quarterly reports, right? If you're concerned about, hey, if you're taking in sort of asking the public to provide input on issues of hate incidents or hate crimes, well, you might want to think about partnering with law enforcement and making sure that they have some kind of opportunity to provide you with reports, say on a quarterly basis, to keep you updated of trends and issues of concern, where you can also ask them questions like, well, what other kind of data are you collecting? What are you doing on the community relations side on this and that? And you can do the same thing with school districts. Ask for a liaison to give you, say quarterly reports, or every 6 months, give you some kind of presentation. And the university, it's the same thing. There are opportunities to do partnerships where you can then use the liaisons as a way to kind of ask them questions. Yes, you can't ask people to do things who are, they're operating in their own autonomous, they're with their own independence as different institutions, but you can certainly ask questions and offer yourselves as a resource, but possibly. In every case, it may present its own opportunities, and they're going to be unique. And again, this is where you can always talk to us. The last one is mediating community disputes. So we can engage in some cases where formal mediation is requested. We can be responsive to that. Right now, we're doing one involving a city related to a process they have that the community feels discriminates. So we're helping to mediate that one. Some of the reasons for using Crew, of course, are we're an alternative to the court system, to litigation, so we can save money. We really emphasize those long-term relationships. As people who live there, they live there. They're not going anywhere. So why not, focus on establishing long-term relationships and building on that. So we can really help with that. Those two other things I wanted to share it with you, in case you don't know, is the California versus Hate resource line and network. You can always call this resource line if you are the victim of hate by calling the 8338 No Hate number, or you can call 211 from any county. And two wonderful things that they do is, one is it serves as a way to collect data on hate across the state, so that then our leaders can sort of figure out, like, well, how do we fund programs, and how do we address all these issues that we're seeing across the state. But the second one I think is even more important, is that we provide culturally competent resources for the person calling. And if they don't know what their options are, they can just call and they will be provided with a series of options. The other program to let you know of is the Commission on the State of Hate. They meet on a monthly basis and have 4 community forums every year. And the commission basically is there to help collect data, information on best practices, programs that, try to fight, hate, study hate, maybe improve human relations, on restorative practices, everything you can imagine that might fall under their commission. They'll study it, they bring panelists, they invite speakers to talk about a series of topics. And you can get on their listserv so that you can attend those meetings on a monthly basis, or, attend one of the community forums. And they try to do those community forums in person to provide the public an opportunity to engage in person. And that's pretty much it. Definitely, want to make sure that that we're there for you. This is a free resource. If I didn't highlight the free part, definitely want to emphasize that your tax dollars have already paid for our services. So we are, scattered across the state, but don't worry about like how we're scattered. We'll try to do a lot of the work virtually, and when needed, based on the services requested, we'll fly in or drive into, the location to provide our services. We've been doing that for dialogues, and we're going to be doing that for our next mediation coming up. But we've been doing that for past mediations and dialogues and conversations or trainings. Sometimes trainings are virtual, sometimes they're in person. So we're there for you based on all the conversations I've been hearing, comments in the public. Yeah, please use us. That's why we're here. We bring that full-time expertise to this field. And any way we can help, we're here for you. Thank you.
Marcus and Kendra, we are so glad to hear about all the resources and the expertise that you all offer. If you captured any of our meeting prior to your presentation, you might have noticed that we could probably use you. And I'm assuming that we are not unique in the state of California. And the way you described it, I know it's a small unit, but how would we pursue this? I mean, obviously, we would have to have some potential consensus about what one of the myriad ways that you operate might be most helpful to us. But I'm thinking that you have a wait list like a mile long or something. And so how do we sort of get started in that process, if I may?
Yeah, so you just email us. You have our contact information. There are different ways. So one is we can start off with individual conversations with you all in case some of you are interested in maybe agendizing a certain topic that you're interested in and you want some ideas. So a consultation can be a quick 15-minute phone call just for ideas. Let me bounce ideas off of you, Marquez. I want to agendize this item. What would I do? So the service could be as quick as a phone call by any one of you. You can then agendize an item if you want to create an ad hoc out of, you can even invite us as a resource for one of the meeting topic discussions if you want to get our thoughts on it. Or you wait until after you have the discussion, and if you decide you want to have an ad hoc for exploring something a little more specific related to the aftermath of a conversation, then you invite us and we engage back and forth with that ad hoc on the ideas, developing a program or some kind of option, so that then you can take it back to the full commission meeting next time. So a quick phone call, we could schedule a phone call with any individual commissioner, or a group of commissioners, as long as it obviously doesn't violate your Brown Act laws or anything that, you're bound by, or, that's why the ad hoc is usually kind of one of those safe ways. So we can engage with you through public meetings or through phone calls. There's options for you. So you can make it as formal as you want, or start it off with quick confidential phone calls if you want, just to kind of pick our brain.
Okay, that's very helpful. I'm going to open this up so for questions, comments, etc. from my fellow commissioners. They're all thinking.
I just want to say I appreciate all that you all are offering. I think at the very least, I personally would love to give you a phone call and chat with you and see what's possible. And then if others do that too, maybe bring it forward in the meeting to discuss something that you broader here, either in a public meeting or potentially there's a subcommittee that forms that wants to specifically work with you to figure out ways to do some of the conflict resolution that you all are experts at. So thank you.
Yeah, same. So this, I'm assuming, thank you first for your presentation, it's wonderful. It seems like you have a lot of resources that we can utilize. Is this, as you mentioned, this is a service that we can access personally or as a group, whether it's as a subcommittee or, or agendize this as have publicly. Is this a service that's available to us as members of the HRC, or is this something that's, are we speaking this personally and utilizing this? I'm just wondering if this is something that's one available at any time, or is this just because you guys are here presenting and are making this available to us, whether we are using it just one time?
It was a little difficult to hear you. Are you asking like, are you the only city we're offering this to? Or is it available to anybody outside of this?
Right, yeah, I understand. I understand you help many cities, departments, commissions. Is this, and maybe this is a question to Carrie, is this something that's available to us now for a limited time, or is this something that's going to be available to us ongoing?
I see. Yeah, so it's not just for a limited time kind of thing. We're here to do as much outreach as possible to all human relation commissions up and down the state to let them know that the state has a resource, use it. So, we're trying to get to everyone eventually. So we're just getting to you. But yeah, it's hopefully the state continues to fund this work, and the service lives on for a long time. So other than funding possibly becoming an issue in the future, in terms of servicing you, there's no limit. There's if you want to be a frequent customer, then by all means, I've had them before. And you know what? Some of the greatest experiences that I've had come from frequent customers. We've engaged in a lot of great work, and you become a model for other cities. Sometimes I ask people to be a presenter or a panelist for other cities that are looking to figure out how to be responsive to an issue. And I say, hey, I have I don't say it this way, but in essence, I try and use my frequent some of those model cities that are doing really great work. So there is no limit. You can use us as much as you want.
Yeah, so I also really appreciate the presentation and the resources that are available here. It definitely seems very related to a lot of what we've been discussing, especially the point that Amir made in the last item about how are we actually going to address issues of hate in town. I don't think I quite caught it. Are these resources available to the commission as a body or to the community of Davis as a whole? And are there ways for us to have these types of dialogues and whatnot within the wider community that could be facilitated?
All of the above. So you could engage us as a commissioner, You could engage us in any other professional capacity. If you're a member of an organization, a nonprofit organization, you could engage us, through that organization. If there are, members in the public who represent other institutions, they can call us. The school district could call us. We could do outreach with the school district. Really, there's no limit. If you're a group that represents, or looks out for others, we can work with you, because we do not become as sort of the face of the response. We work with those local CBOs or groups that are the face of they're a party. So we're the third party coming to assist you, but we need that local body that is the one taking the lead, looking at, hey, how do I resolve, this problem? Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you for that. We are just about at the end of our time, but Marcus, Kendra, if you could stay with us just for a minute. What I would like to do now is to open up for public comment. And I don't know if folks were able to catch all of your presentation. We have had a transcript that we've been recording that hopefully has helped deal with some of the audio issues, and thank you, Carrie, for arranging that. But I just wanted to allow for an opportunity for public comment on the presentation we've had from the Community Conflict Resolution Unit. Okay, I am not seeing anyone come forward, which is fine. And I'll just then bring it back to the dais and see if there is any other sort of questions, comments, thoughts. Ellie has her hand.
One more kind of a follow-up question, I think, some stuff you already answered, just being a little bit more specific. First of all, thank you. I learned a lot and took a bunch of notes. One of the things that we hear in public comment consistently is this desire for community dialogue and kind of frustrations with the way that how our HRC meetings are set up doesn't really allow for that sort of dialogue, right? Everybody has their 3 minutes on a topic, listen, right? It's quite formal. So I'm curious about your past experiences working with HRCs. If when you are working on community dialogue, are you working within like an HRC public meeting and thus kind of following those rules, or have you worked with the commission to kind of put on like a separate community event?
Well, one way, this is quite a few years ago, I think the way we did it was not all commissioners were present, so that we could have a more flexible environment that looked like just a regular dialogue put on by a local organization. But there was an ad hoc that was very active in putting it together, designing it, and so I believe they were the ones who were present, so that no Brown Act laws were violated, and we were able then to have a lot of flexibility with the format, the setup, how long people could talk. People could talk much longer than 3 minutes, since it did not have those kinds of rules. They were custom. The conversations were more about like, hey, let's give 30 minutes to this conversation, 20 minutes to that, next question. So it was very much a custom dialogue where we didn't have to abide by the structural limitations of a public meetings, since again we took those kinds of precautions. So I think that's kind of one of the ways commissions address that, and then they report back their results back to the full commission. But some of the commissioners will even be facilitators in that. Again, that one that I'm remembering was quite a few years ago, and I think that was a different time period, maybe funding issues, they defunded it or something happened, but they're no longer meeting. But that was one way they routinely, were able to engage with the public. Yeah.
I just wanted to hop in real quick here. I believe that they also did a presentation to Hate Free Together a few months ago. So some sort of community workshop could potentially come out of Hate Free Together, which would be subject to very different requirements than a Brown Act body. So that's one way that something in our community could take place. Thank you both.
Great point, Carrie. Thank you. Okay, Marcus, Kendra, I'm pretty sure you do not get paid overtime. So we are going to thank you for your presentation, for all the great work that you do, and do not be surprised if you hear from us again.
Wonderful. Thanks for having us.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Thanks,
So much
everyone.
appreciated.
So are we gonna create this an ad hoc group to communicate with them, or is that gonna be to you pick, or how are we gonna move forward with that?
Well, that's something that we can absolutely talk about. I happen to serve with Marquez on the board of the California Association of Human Relations Officials, so we do talk from time to time. But if there is interest, and it sounds like there might be, although I think, as Carrie is pointing out, it should probably be in coordination with whatever might be percolating at Hate Free Together. But I think there can absolutely be that kind of discussion. And if there's interest in doing that, I think we can absolutely put that on our long range agenda and with a date, subject to whatever official processes are needed.
Yes, I think if this is something that you guys are interested in exploring, further and taking action on, we probably need to agendize it for your long range and have a longer discussion to see exactly what it is you want to do, and then bring it to council for consideration. If it's something that you just want to create a quick subcommittee to do some general exploratory, then that would be fine.
And it is part of our charge, according to the city council, as far as I'm aware, Linda could clarify for me, that we are supposed to have some working relationship with Hate Free Together, so.
Absolutely, you are the community engagement component of Hate Free Together, and so something like this could fall in line with that. So I think I'd recommend that you guys, because that's not actually part of the agenda item tonight was to hear the presentation, is if you want to take some action and think about some collaboration potentially with Hate Free Together, we can certainly, and you're absolutely right, Lainey, that's definitely directly under your charge, so thank you for
Seems like this
saying
all
that.
go together nicely. I was just thinking, give us an opportunity for a specific task to work on with Hate Free Together, because we've been sort of wondering what that relationship would be like, so.
Absolutely.
Sounds like we want to put it on the long range calendar.
Yeah, so let's just get clarity about this if I can, because I'm not sure that I know my own mind. If we will really wishing to do that, there would be an item that we would ask to be put on the long range calendar. That would then have to get council approval in order for us to take any steps.
I believe if the item was to actually be something in conjunction with Hate Free Together, which is part of your charge that council's provided, then I think that we would not have to then bring it to council. I think you could just jump right into it.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I'm still learning.
Me too.
Okay, well, please, Megan.
I'd be happy to provide an update from Hate Free Together regarding our engagement with this
Yes,
group.
sure.
So myself, Michael Villalobos, and Kate Snow as well are a part of the executive
Executive Committee for Hate Free Together. We did, as part of one of our recent bi-monthly community Zoom convenings, receive a similar presentation from this group. And as you all may be aware, currently Hate Free Together, we just closed an RFP for a community planning summit. I apologize, so we're all trying to look back at you as well. A community planning summit and strategic planning process. We are reviewing those bids and hope to make that selection soon. Part of that RFP, as the name suggests, includes a community planning summit. One of the action items and deliverables is around resource mapping. So I think that including intentionally the Civil Rights Division and their community conflict resolution unit as one of the touch points in that resource mapping will be important. And I also want to share that one of the priorities for Hate Free Together is really to look at the expertise we have in our local community. So very complementary to the services that we heard described today. I know that we have, and this is not an exhaustive list, the Yola Conflict Resolution Center at UC Davis. We have our ombuds office. So certainly that resource mapping exercise is going to be really important for us. And I think that that's something that maybe the commission and Hate Free Together can come together around to see what's available and how can we best utilize those resources together.
Thank you. And I'm sorry that I didn't realize or forgot that, of course, you are absolutely a key part of that work. So that's going to be super helpful. So I'm gathering that there is consensus that we would like to have further discussion about the CCRU and specifically in relationship to our community engagement function with Hate Free Together.
Do we need the motion and vote to have this be on long range, or can we just move forward with the assumption that people are okay with it based on what they've said?
I think we've got it noted. Excellent, thank you.
I did want to also ask, so this long range would be for a regular meeting of ours. It seems like we could create a subcommittee now to work on this and look into this further if people are interested. So if there are people who want to like start thinking through that on a subcommittee now, that is something that I would support. Though I am not going to be on the subcommittee, but if other people would like to.
Connor, I take the point, and I love the idea. I'm just looking for a little clarity from the those who can give us some direction about whether we're allowed to kind of move forward with that.
I think that if you wanted to create a very limited short-term subcommittee to do exploratory on what your long-range agenda might look like, you could do that.
A committee to to explore the.
Okay, do you guys want to, our deputy city clerk is suggesting that you do this on long range. I think that we've gotten a little bit past the agenda item right now.
Right, okay. So we will have it on our long range calendar, and then we will pick up that item. Perhaps as early as next month. And we'll put it on with a target date of May. Thank you all for the guidance and for the discussion. Good questions. If there's nothing further, then
I have something.
oh, thank you. Please.
If it's okay, I would like to motion that we decide now to extend our time together through 9 p.m. so that we don't interrupt the next item to do that. Looking at the time and looking at the cases still in front of us, at least an extension until 9 p.m. seems respectful and appropriate.
Awesome. You anticipated what I was going to just note when I looked up at the clock and noticed that it was 8:10. So I think that's well taken.
Second.
Yeah, okay. Any other sort of thoughts, comments, questions, objections? If not, I'll ask for a show of hands or an aye. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions, and motion carries. Thank you, Elaine, for being on top of that. We are going to continue then with the next item. This is 6C. This is the report and specifically the recommendations for the subcommittee inquiring into discrimination against Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims, and their allies, which we have kind of colloquially called MAPA. So I think what we will do is to begin with the committee. Ellie, will be you, okay? And we'll have a brief introduction and open up the public comment.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Is there any way that the screen could be made a little bigger by just like increasing the size? I'm just worried. We can't really see.
Yeah, let me see what I can do. I was just worried about losing the Zoom recording. Let's see.
Oh,
Yeah. Like, you know, like
this full bar, yeah.
there we go. Thank you. How's that?
That's
Is that
great.
better?
That's great. And when we need to get to 6, if anyone, we can scroll down. Thank you so much.
Ellie, please.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for turning it over to me. So I just want to clarify that we are not representing the information that we presented during our last meeting. We're really here today to talk about our recommendations. You all have had a few weeks now to look at the report that our subcommittee put together. And I just wanted to really briefly just kind of like remind everybody of the methodology of that. I think some questions have come up on that. So these recommendations are coming out of 3 months of research, many, many conversations with Muslims, Arabs, Palestinians, and allies within Davis. So we primarily took a qualitative approach to this. We really wanted this to be an opportunity for people to get to share their experiences, their thoughts, their feelings in a safe way. One of the things that came up is that there is enormous risks in speaking out for many members of this community, both kind of like professional, right, risk, but also just like a level of comfort. And so this report was an opportunity and is an opportunity for the city to hear directly from community members about their experiences. And so that is why we went with a qualitative approach by both using a survey, and you can actually see the survey questions that we asked within the report, but also through conversations and reviewing things like social media, videos, photos, things like that. Within all that, we did consult with a couple state and national quantitative surveys that we're looking at a much broader pool and really working more in the numbers. And we did include results from those surveys, results from those studies at the end of the report. So if you're interested in more of the numbers, those are there for you. And we found a lot of the conclusions that we came to and found within the community were aligned with those national conclusions as well. Okay, very briefly, I just want to point out that our recommendations have been updated from our last meeting. So we took in the feedback that we got from the conversation after our presentation, and we ended up cutting 2 of the recommendations, including the one for a meeting within the Jewish community. We also changed some of the wording on some of our recommendations to just be a little bit stronger. So for example, our recommendation number 4 right now, asking for anti-Palestinian racism and anti-Muslim bias training to be part of a broader anti-bias, anti-racism training. So ideally that would include things like anti-Semitism training as well. So that was not the focus of this subcommittee. All right, we as a subcommittee are recommending that these recommendations be passed along to City Council as is. We spent a lot of time working on the wording and we feel very confident that these are the recommendations that should go forward. And just as a reminder, the report is here to provide context. So our discussion today should be about these 6 recommendations. That's what's going to city council, and the report itself is being used as background information. That's what I have for you all.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Ellie. I'm going to open it up for public comment in just a minute, but if I might. Oh,
Yeah.
please.
Sorry. I just wanted to follow before we jump into discussion. Thanks, Ellie, for noting the differences in our recommendations. Before we jump in though into discussion, I wanted to note some additional feedback that we received from some of the MAPA community. We did not make any updates to the actual report, both in terms of the recommendations. The recommendations are an addendum that you are looking at right now, just because we didn't want to confuse things by creating a different version of the report. But so the things I'm going to bring up, the feedback I'm bringing up from the MAPA community is not added to the report, but we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the feedback and note it for future efforts like this. So the feedback we received and that we acknowledge is that we had a lighter representation of people who have experienced or reported straight anti-Muslim discrimination. We did get some reports of this, especially as it related to wearing hijab and the treatment of school-age children at DJ Nudist schools. But we didn't cover that in the presentation, and we didn't cover those quotes in the presentation, but they are in the report. We also found that while we had a good number of conversations and surveys from Muslim community members, most were those that either had an association with UCD in some way or had connections with the Arab community, which may have led to a greater amount of reporting on anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian racism than on anti-Muslim bias, which is also a very real part of people's experiences living here in Davis. We attribute some of this to our difficulty in reaching some of these groups, especially those associated with our local mosque, and to the cultural differences which we've brought up in many conversations here, in which this group there includes a tendency to keep complaints to oneself and a general fear of retaliation or unwanted attention. In addition to perhaps not having enough representation purely on anti-Muslim discrimination, we were also made aware of some positive progress for the Muslim community that we missed in our overview of some of the positive things happening from MAPA communities in Davis. One of these was the development of UC Davis Muslim faculty group, which I believe happened last year. So we wanted to make sure that we noted that progress. Also, something we wanted to mention as another positive action which happened after the April 2 meeting in which we presented was the proclamation recognizing April as American Muslim Appreciation and Awareness Month, which was announced and celebrated at the April 15th City Council meeting. So while these items are not in the MAPA report, we were glad to hear about them from the community and to learn that they are grateful for these actions and the positive progress that they bring to the Davis community. Those are the things we just wanted to make sure we addressed, since those were feedback specifically from the MAPA community that was not addressed in the report. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to hold my comment slash question, and thank you, Ellie and Dima, for that kind of introduction. And what we will do now then is to open up the item for public comment. We obviously received significant public comment on this item when it was initially presented at our last meeting, as well as written public comment that has been received since and is available in the binder in the back that Carrie was referring to earlier. But of course, we continue to invite and encourage any additional feedback folks would like to offer. And particularly focused on the recommendations, which are the item for us today. But please, if you would like to offer public comment now on this item, forward. I'm sorry, you're going to have to turn the microphone around because we were trying to improve the audio.
Do we need a podium chat just for the video, or to move it forward? We're okay.
My name is Leanne Herrickstead. I'm a resident here.
And I wanted to urge that the MAPA report and recommendations be sent on promptly to the city council. I wholeheartedly agree with the recommendations. Institutional acknowledgement of the hurt and distrust in the community is a beginning step towards healing and building a healthier community. I didn't realize about the change to the, I think it's number 6 item on the recommendations. And I think that honestly recognizing that speech in favor of Palestinian justice is not anti-Semitic is important. And I hope we can have some public education on that. The Jewish organization, If Not Now, issued a letter today in memory of the Holocaust. And it reads in part, "This must be the path forward. Shared safety through solidarity with each other, not through building walls and closing ourselves off from others." And I wanted to add a vote for Sandy Holman's work in the community too. Thank you.
Next, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Pilar. I'm a citizen of Davis. I am also of Jewish descent. I have family living in Israel, whom I cherish, but I do not support the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. In fact, most Tuesdays, I join a group of people protesting in front of Congressman Mike Thompson's office in Woodland. We stand against the use of US tax dollars to perpetuate genocide by the Israeli government. This exercise of my free speech does not make me an anti-Semite. My concern about the well-being of the Palestinian people does not make me an anti-Semite. I do not hate Jews or the Israeli people. I simply cannot condone the current actions of the Israeli government, and so I speak out. Sadly, I'm learning that my Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian neighbors do not have this same freedom. The MAPA report suggests that a significant minority of people are being overtly or subtly harassed because they have spoken up about injustices enacted by the Israeli government or simply empathize with the plight of the Palestinian people. I wish to thank the Human Relations Subcommittee for investigating discrimination against Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims, and their allies. I encourage you, this commission, to take this to the next level by sharing this report with our council and advocating that they move ahead with the recommended action items the report provides. Many Davisites have a sign on their front lawn proclaiming that Davis welcomes everyone. The MAPA report suggests that this is not actually the case. But by working together to welcome all faiths, colors, countries of origin, perhaps we can make that message real. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here to encourage supporting sending these recommendations to the City Council. So I want to start by thanking the subcommittee for performing such a complete survey of the MAPA community and presenting your findings in such a clear and effective manner. This survey was so necessary because our community often doesn't talk about hate speech or incidents, or it's so common it doesn't even register anymore as something new. I have youth in the community who just casually mention stories of other kids calling them terrorists and saying racist, Islamophobic comments, and I'm hearing them in shock while they say, "Oh, it's fine, I just play it off." We don't want our kids thinking it's normal for others to call them these things, and as was mentioned earlier, these comments are a reflection of what their classmates hear at home. And that comes back to this survey and the recommendations. It's an actual opportunity to make change in the community. I believe many of you who were at the April 2nd meeting could directly relate to the sentiment shared in the survey. Feelings of being silenced, distressed, and unwelcome. So I encourage you to use that empathy to try to make a change for the community who is constantly feeling those things in Davis. These recommendations directly address the three purposes listed on the HRC website: to make recommendations around equity and discrimination, prevent and address that discrimination, and be the lead commission related to community engagement within the Hate Free Together initiative. So I encourage you to face any negativity, intimidation, and confusion you may experience with knowledge, clarity, and the drive to make positive change. With that, you may be challenged, but you'll find blessings at every step as you continue your work. You have a whole MAPA community behind you as you take courageous steps to combat hate, encourage education, and make morally conscious decisions. Thank you.
Please. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Tamara Kraus, and I want to remind you all that this is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I want to take a moment to think about all the hostages that are being held by Hamas, not by the Palestinian people, but by Hamas, a terrorist organization. And I think that even the Gazan people deserve for this terrible situation to end, and I hope that the hostages can be freed. And again, never again. But I'm here now. I would like to read something that David Siegel wrote. He was not able to be here today. So Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiment are serious issues in the US and worldwide. That said, the Davis Human Relations Commission meeting on April 2nd last month did little to advance knowledge of our core combat these problems. Rather, they presented a 45-minute biased report from HRC's MAPA, Muslims, Arabs, Palestinians, and Allies Committee, which purported to investigate these issues in Davis, hindered serious efforts to mitigate these problems. The report obstructed a deeper understanding of these concerns by making numerous false charges, promoting conflict and weaponizing Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiment. The MAPA study reported data that the committee had collected. At the April 2nd meeting, HRC members read long quotes from interviews, viewers who supposedly represented a cross-section of MAPA groups in Davis. It was quickly apparent that the quoted individuals were not randomly selected, but were purposefully picked to spread carefully chosen political themes and falsehoods. First, we were told at HRS meeting that a booth at the farmers market spews hate against MAPA groups and terrifies children in the playground across from it. Having been at this booth on many Saturday mornings, and I have too, I did not recognize what was being described. Rather, the purpose of the booth is to draw attention to the brutally Hamas-held hostages in Gaza, most of whom who are dead. At least 90% of people who approach the booth engage in polite discussion, seeking information, or wishing to discuss the issues. Come by and see for yourself. Free the hostages. Next, we were told that the Hamas supporters who showed up at the Davis City Council meeting on 12/12/23 to demand an immediate ceasefire were the victims of slander and intimidation by quote pro-Zionist crowd. I refer to them as Hamas supporters, as an immediate ceasefire would have left Hamas in power in Gaza. I was present at this December 12th meeting with some others, like-minded individuals, and we were outnumbered at least 10-1 by the Hamas supporters. Fortunately, Davis DCC meetings are recorded, and viewing them will put to light these allegations and have the truth come out. We were next told that pro-Hamas demonstrations are victimized by individuals pushing cameras in their face when they demonstrate to speak in public spaces, including the quad at UC Davis. No doubt this objection to documentation includes the filming of the recent attacks by cops off campus and their allies on Turning Point USA on April 3rd. Turning Point USA has peacefully assembled for UC Davis sanctioned event. I've witnessed students for justice in Palestine.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up if you can, or we'll be over time.
That's okay, I'll have someone else.
Okay, thank you. Please, come forward. Thank
My
you.
name is Millie Roth, and I will continue the letter that Tamara will be reading.
Okay, very good.
Turning Point USA had peacefully assembled for a UC Davis sanctioned event. I have witnessed Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, led demonstration, and videographs have been 10-50 feet away. Documenting events by face-covered protesters enabled honest people to make their own judgments about the issue discussed above. If I were in the anti-Israel group, I would also be concerned that my actions and words were recorded. The MAPA report repeated claim that Aggies for Israel, a pro-Zionist UC Davis student group, and Hillel intimidate MAPA students and others on the UC Davis campus. This is so outrageously false that anyone who has spent 1 minute on the UC Davis campus during the pro-Hamas encampment, marched through classroom, and the student center by face-covered protesters or other events sponsored by SJP and their allies, realize that the opposite is true, all documented on video. Having had umbrellas shoved in my face and jostled outside illegal encampment for walking near it, also documented on video with hundreds of thousands of views on social media. I could only wonder at the chutzpah of those making these preposterous claims of persecution. One section of the MAPA report requires special comment, the weaponizing of anti-Semitism, where we find repeated comments that charges of anti-Semitism have been used to intimidate those who would criticize the Israeli government, particularly Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The MAPA report repeatedly refers to the right-wing and Jewish supremacists as major perpetrators of these efforts. This false claim diverts attention from the real issues. I had the vast majority of proud Zionists whom I know believe that there can be legitimate criticism of Israel as well as Netanyahu and his actions. The implication of the weaponizing of anti-Semitism theme is the most charges of anti-Semitism are illegitimate and used for purposes of intimidation. Since the Anti-Defamation League and the FBI both report a 50 to 80 increase in anti-Semitic incidents in the US, including on college campuses. I would disagree with the MAPA report's insinuation, nor do I believe that most Zionists are right-wing or Jewish supremacists. This repeated slander has no basis in fact and is not sustained in the MAPA report. At the end of the HRC presentation, the chair of HRC, who was the lead author of the MAPA report, editorialized about how they were merely recording how people felt, repeating lies and claiming no responsibility for their content is a cowardly attempt to absolve an individual from responsibility for the content of their comments. We see this nationally when people repeat Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s dangerous lies about vaccination or spread lies about immigrants and then claim no responsibility for their consequences.
Can I ask you to wrap it up, please? Okay.
I have just one sentence. The above comments only scratch the surface of the lies, distortions, and slander contained in the MAPA report. It is online and people should read it for themselves. The current HRC is so hopelessly biased that it needs to be abolished and reconstituted with honest individuals who will promote the welfare of all Davis residents in a fair and just manner and fulfill the promise of the Davis Commission truly devoted to human relations. It goes without saying that the Davis City Council should reject these divisive, slanderous, and hate-filled reports.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Leah Hibble. Thank you for putting this report together. It's heartbreaking to hear of people being called terrorists, especially children. I appreciate learning examples like this and how the MAPA community has been targeted. It is interesting to note that much of the report doesn't actually include evidence or examples. It certainly would strengthen the report and serve to educate if there were more clear examples of harm that our fellow community members are facing. Without clear examples and evidence, I worry that this report also serves to slander and libel community members. The Congregation Bet Havri Encountering Anti-Semitism Committee put on a presentation that is mentioned in the report. 3 different people called it Islamophobic and anti-Arab. Yet somehow none of these people provided specific examples. So how do we know it isn't just slander? How do we know that it isn't just weaponization to silence Jews talking about anti-Semitism? Luckily for me, I'm not in the position to decide if the city report should take on this liability. Unlucky for me, I am slandered in this report. Dan was assaulted last night, he told you that. At the previous meeting, people talked about known Zionists in the community. It makes me wonder, are you, the Human Relations Committee, putting Jews in danger? I don't have any issues with any of your recommendations, but bad data in makes bad policy out.
Thank you for your comment. Please, good evening.
I just want to add regarding all that I've heard, that multiple realities can exist at one time, and that there is no such thing as an absolute truth, because we all have stories. And it wounds my counselor heart to hear that we can't even have dialogues. I have been attacked in social media are posting things that, to me, is eye-opening because history is repeating itself. But it doesn't mean that I am one thing. We need to all stop othering each other and create bridges, connections. I heard today what is happening in our schools. Children learn from the adults in the room. And we need to start modeling what we want to see in the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else on the general public comment? I see someone coming forward.
I want to thank you and the city council for doing all the work that you all do. It's important work. The Human Relations Commission is here to help foster community and give space for community members to communicate how their communities are feeling. Ultimately, in order to continue to foster community here in Davis, we must allow and accept people for who they are and how they show up. Our differences are what make us a community. Our individuality fosters ideas and makes things happen. We can't accomplish things if we are all the same. We shouldn't have to shrink ourselves or stay silent to stay in our community. The Davis community needs to protect its marginalized community members right now. Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian individuals and their allies are feeling under attack and need our community support. There's a fear of deportation. There's a fear of attack of our beliefs and our freedom of speech. It is disheartening and dehumanizing that we have community members saying that our reality is not valid and is a lie, and that our truth should not be given merit. That makes me feel unsafe, that we aren't seen as equal level of human beings. We are human beings just like everybody else here. We need support and care in validating our lived experience. Doing so does not negate the pain or fear from other community members. This duality needs to stop. Our fear is real, the targeting is real. We don't come out in numbers because of the fear of targeting and retaliation from community members, national organizations, and our federal government. This is not just a figment of our imagination. This is the reality of what's happening right now. It's terrifying. I'm speaking up with the knowledge that I have privilege, that I'm relatively safe here in Davis. And I'm going to continue to speak up. And I really, really hope that you pass this on to the city council. Thank you.
Good comment. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Fatima, and I was invited to come today to kind of observe what this process is like. I'm newer to Davis, and I work for UC Davis, and I've heard a lot about the impact that UC Davis has on this community in regards to what's happening in the world. I will say there are a lot of efforts happening to support both sides of this discussion. And I hate to hear that someone was attacked on campus. I hate to hear that people are feeling othered. But the only way that we can work through this is to have these conversations. So I really do appreciate this commission and what you guys do. I didn't even know it existed, to be honest. And this report sounds like it is fascinating. And as I've looked through some of it, I don't think it takes away from the other constructs that are being said and the other stories that are being said. I don't think it takes away from someone's trauma. I think what hurts the most is to watch us being polarized to this extent, because we're hearing it happening to our kids. I have children that go to UC Davis. Davis Joint Unified School District. I've worked in school districts doing this kind of mental health work. I think that we can only change through these conversations, and I don't mind opposing viewpoints. I just think that we can't come to meetings and really continue to voice our opinion saying that someone else's pain is creating more harm. We have to be able to hear each other. I really advise some of the community members here to understand that we're all hurting here. Death isn't okay, killing is not okay. We all really want to solve the world's problems, but the reality of it is that we are here. We're trying to point, like, what do we do? And I don't want to target someone for their efforts. I think that we should be able to have these spaces, and I appreciate that it's here. So thank you.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else then for public comment on this issue? I can see someone coming forward. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for this great report that you put together. I want to acknowledge how blessed we are living in a city that we have this opportunity to speak up and to touch upon this contentional issues while we see that all around the country what's happening and how we're being targeted as Muslim. I also want to acknowledge Holocaust in this day. I want also to acknowledge that today is the genocide of Armenian. I know that there are, at this date, we don't know how many more genocide through history happened. Native American, other parts of the world. And that's exactly why we are here. Learning from those lessons and as human beings try to not repeating the same pattern that put each other in the situation or being bystander of people being killed and being genocide or being attacked. It doesn't matter who is being attacked. And here is not a race of we compete over who's being more victimized. It's anybody who is victimized, anybody who is being attacked and not respected, kids, adults, we all have rights and we have to stand up for each other. I want to remind us as a connection, as this human being. I want to end with this Sadi, the Persian poet who lived in 13th century. And this poem is right now in the United Nations in New York. And I think that says it all. It says that human beings are members of a whole in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. And I hope that we retain the name of human and fight for it, fight for each other, and we don't accept hate, attack, and unsafety for any of the members of a community, our country, and anyone in the world. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Oh, what the heck? Alan Miller. I mainly wanted to speak on two principles. Free speech and nonviolence. And I really want to speak against political violence more than anything. And I really hope that, you know, we can really stomp it out right here. I mean, political violence, like, you know, a bunch of masked people on campus coming up and smashing something because they don't like conservatives. Good God. And I went to that Charlie Kirk thing. I just went to observe the you know, laughable, violent chaos that was going on. I heard there was going to be a protest, so I just went to watch it because everybody's saying, oh, the Proud Boys are going to come, and Proud Boys never came. It was a bunch of masked people with umbrellas, and then I walked up to the door and they said, oh, are you coming in? I'm like, no, I don't think so. And they're, oh, it's free. And I'm like, don't I have to get a screen? No. So I walked in, I listened to Charlie Kirk. He was just like a kind of a old-fashioned conservative. He wasn't evil. He spent 80% of the time just having discussions with people he disagreed with. Didn't particularly agree with him, but what I really didn't disagree with was when all of a sudden we heard yelling and then glass breaking, and I'm sure you've all seen the videos, the jackasses kicking in the doors, and then afterwards they were telling people that they were evil Nazis as they were walking out, and then they were heaving water bottles at them. I mean, this is insanity. You know, all these Teslas burning. You know, property damage turns into violence eventually. It's So people argue about that in nonviolence, but what I've seen, you just can't start that. And why is there this tolerance of violence? I do, just because Trump's in office, it's okay to be violent. No, we have to oppose political violence, whether it's January 6th, whether it's riots with George Floyd. I don't, whether it's just no effing violence. That's the only way that we are going to be able to deal with stuff in this country or in Davis. And, if anything, you as the human relations community should be condemning violence. And I think that includes masks, because the biggest jackass on earth is Elon On, who put on a fucking white face and attacked a bunch of people at a UCLA Palestinian encampment, a pro-Palestinian encampment. That jackass with his mask. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Please.
Hello again. Some of you know that my father was born in Egypt. His name was Joseph Abdul Wahed. So for the first 18 years of my life, my name was Daniel Joseph Abdul Wahed, even though we are Jews. All the Jews were ethnically cleansed from Egypt, but I spent the first 18 years of my life with a Muslim name. And I have experienced anti-Muslim racism because on my passport it said Daniel Joseph Abdul Wahed. So I would go to France and they would look very hard at me. A male with that name, which means slave of Allah, I was given special treatment. So I fully understand and comprehend this problem. Unfortunately, the report falls short of solving the issue in our town. I think a lot of comments have already been made. I'll just say that it was misleading, inaccurate, capricious, subjective, and arbitrary. And I'll leave it at that. There is no evidence there. And so I think applying heinous accusations against your fellow community members requires intense diligence and documentation and proof. These are heinous accusations in this report against community members, and the evidence simply doesn't support it. That's a big problem. Yes, I've spent the last 18 months documenting support for terror on campus, support for Hamas, Hezbollah, PFLP. Absolutely, I've done that hard work. It's not fun, it's not pleasant, I've made a few mistakes. However, if we're going to make accusations, it has to be triple checked, backed up, and factual. This report fails in every regard. It is subjective, so people have called it an experience. The experience that is not mentioned is the fact that on campus it said, in the encampment, the only good Zionist is a dead one. What are we supposed to do? It has the Hezbollah flag there. Al-Qassam brigades painted there. What are we supposed to do? There's more outrage that Daniel Joseph Abdul Wahed documented the Hamas flag, the Hamas Al-Qassam fighter. There's more outrage that I documented than the fact that the encampment had it there. Think of that for a second. There's more outrage that I'm documenting a hate than the hate itself. So I would just encourage this. Going forward, a lot of this tension and friction can go away as long as the movement to support Palestinians separates itself from these attacks and these unfortunate, slanderous actions. And I think a lot of the tension will go away.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else then who would like to offer a public comment? Yes, good evening. Please come forward. Okay.
I'm Swana Joseph. I want to congratulate the commission and the subcommittee on the report. I think it's the first time there's been an effort to hear the voices of the Arab and the Muslim and the Palestinian community in Davis in terms of their experience. And it needs to be taken at its value as their experience, their voices, their lives. Just as we take the reports of any group that has had racist attacks against them at face value in terms of what they experience. The thing about hate is that it's expansive. When one group is hated upon, then it generates more hate. There's no limit. Hate is not a limited pie. It's extremely expansive. The good thing is justice is also expansive. Justice from one group does not take away from justice from another group. And I think that's what is being addressed here today, is to give justice, to give voice, to give legitimacy to the experience of the Arab, Muslim, and the Palestinian community. That does not take away for the need to give justice to other groups in this community who also feel hate. It's not a matter of saying, I have more hate addressed against me than you have hate. That's not a competition. None of us want hate addressed against us. None of us want discrimination. Discrimination against you hurts me. And I would hope that discrimination against me would hurt you. That's the nature of social justice. And the wonderful thing about social justice is that it is even more expansive than hate. That when we have social justice for one group and recognize it as a template for the way all people should be treated, it becomes expanded to the community. I would hope that the commission, that the Human Rights Commission would forward these recommendations in recognition that the primary commitment of the commission is justice for all groups in the community, and the recognition the more social justice we offer our community members, the more social justice will exist in the community across the board for all of Davis. And that's my wish for this report. Thank you.
Comment.
Kevin, I'd like us to consider a motion that we extend our time together until at least 9:30 tonight. Do I have any seconds?
Okay, there is a motion. If you just hold on for a second, we have a motion and a second. It sounds appropriate to me, even if it might be upsetting to Ellie. No, just kidding. I just ask then, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, abstentions, the motion carries. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry for the interruption. Please go
So I would like to start by saying that as a young member of the Davis community who attended the last HRC meeting, I found it very sad and honestly absolutely unacceptable that people are attempting to silence a presentation that does nothing besides bring light to what members of our community are actively feeling, which I believe is what this commission is for. I understand being shocked or even uncomfortable with the information that was shared, but that does not make it untrue, and it is exactly why it needs to be shared. I urge the council to continue reporting on the hate all groups in this community are experiencing, but I am truly disappointed that there has been a pushback on something that should be supported. I hope for the future that those who feel so strongly about a presentation that represents and gives the community a voice will learn to be understanding and deal with their feelings in a more mature manner without attacking the experiences of others in their community. So please continue doing what you do, and thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward. Okay, is there anyone else then for public comment on this item? If not, I don't want to cut anybody off, but the hour is getting a little bit late and please, absolutely. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Blake Temple. I want to say I support this report. I think it should go forward. My wife is Jewish, my children are Jewish, my grandchildren are Palestinian and Jewish. And I think this report is perfectly fine. I think it's about time something like this was done. I think this discrimination against Palestinians is real, and I fear it. And I didn't prepare any more than that. I just want to say I support this. I think it should go forward.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, I'm going to close it there. If I can bring it back then to the commission. And then just to ground the discussion now for the commission that Action before us for consideration is the committee's proposed recommendations to City Council, as you see on the screen. And to facilitate that discussion, I will move now that we adopt the committee's proposal and open up the discussion and debate. Is there a second for that?
I will second.
Okay, Ellie, seconds, and now let's have discussion as folks wish. Who would like to start us off?
I'd be happy.
Please, next part.
We heard lots of very eye-opening, I think, comments on both sides. And I think that none of the members on this commission or the crowd wants to see anyone being discriminated in this town. And we want to act against that and counteract that. That being said, I have some serious concerns about the report itself. And given the report, the recommendation supposedly are based on the data and the analysis based on the 3 months of research. And it suggests that there might be systemic bias and discrimination against Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, and their allies in this town, at UC Davis and the DGASU, and for that we need to do all of those recommendations. But the report doesn't support that. The report provides a lot of personal feelings which no one can argue with, right? If someone tells you that I'm hurting, I believe that person. I'm hurting. You can't argue against that. What this report is not doing, which I would love to have, is to see what is it based on. What are the events? What is the documentation of those various events? And there are a few actual documentation that are very concerning, of kids that say that they've been called terrorists and some other nasty and hurtful names. But then again, the other thing that this report is doing, which makes me being much more, what's the word that I'm looking for? I find hard to trust, is that other than talking about the hurt of the Palestinian, Arabs, and Muslims in this town, is that it's pointing fingers. And it's pointing very direct fingers at an entire community and specific individuals, calling names, and some of those events, I've been there. I know that's incorrect. Some of the fingers that are pointed at me, and I know who I am, and I know that it's incorrect. So I don't think that at the bottom line, I don't think that this report and recommendation are going to provide any resolution, any positive impact. I think that as it is, it's only going to deepen the divide. And I think that by moving into council, we're not doing our job.
Thank you, Amir. Anyone else like to be recognized in this?
I think it's hard. It's hard. I'm going to speak from my personal experience. As a person who is racially ambiguous, I have experienced different types of hate, ranging from the near what I actually am to far beyond what I ever considered people would suspect me to be. And what I'm trying to say is I have experienced from microaggressions daily. Somebody posting on next door that there's a brown man that rode down the street because I mistakenly made a wrong turn riding a bike. To old person going down the grocery aisle, they see me coming down and they go, "Oh, brown guy with tattoos." Let me leave the aisle. To blatant racism. I mean, literally, I've been called the N-word. I've been called every single, slur that you can think of for, immigrants, for, Latinx, for everyone. Do I document, do I write down, do I keep a tally of all these? No, I don't. Because it's just become such a secondary part of my existence. So to say that we have to give specific examples of hate, and to not just validate somebody because they say, hey, I've experienced hate, this is what's happened to me. I think it's just, you're taken away from people who are experiencing these things. I cannot give you a specific example of every single time that I've been, that I've experienced aggression of this type. I cannot, because it's just part of my life. Daily. So just gonna put it there and leave it at that.
Thank you, folks. Okay. Anyone else that want to address your recommendations? Let me just clarify, if I might, just real briefly. We certainly have heard contentions about the report. I think we have tried to listen and take those seriously. I do want to kind of underscore something that Amir said too, which is that the report really is a reflection about how people are feeling. It is their opinions, their subjective lived experience. And for me, that was important. And it wasn't important for me as a committee member specifically to investigate the truth or accuracy of any event that they might have experienced, because that wasn't a particular concern. I have to say, I have been struck in my time on the commission. And I think I mentioned this when the report was previewed at our last meeting. I'm not a member of the Jewish community, or perhaps I should say communities, plural, nor am I a member of the Mabo community or communities, but one of the things that's really stood out for me is how similar a lot of the feeling is. And I think, as others have suggested, that ought to tell us something. And I'm hoping that similarity might actually give us the opening to have some helpful dialogue, as others have suggested, and maybe some understandings. If there's willingness to do that, and not only for people to speak their truths, as someone mentioned earlier, but to listen to each other as well. I don't think we're going to get there tonight, and maybe though this is a place to start from. And I am hoping that maybe with the assistance of the good people at the Community Conflict Resolution Unit or others, that we might be able to find a path forward and begin trying to do some of the good work that some of the commentators have urged us to do. So with that, let me just ask Lenny.
Okay. I understand the discussion now is to be about the recommendations primarily, and I will stick to that in terms of most of the content of what I'm saying. I do have a few wonders that I just want to say out loud, and for whatever they're worth, and I find myself wondering several things. So number one, I trust everybody on this commission, and if a subcommittee brings something and says that they have done a lot of work and they've done a lot of thinking and they've curated this information responsibly, my instinct is to trust them, okay? And I do in the case of this. I do find myself wondering several things, and I'll just say those, and I don't know if it's the right time to respond or not. I don't need a response, but I just want to say out loud. So I wonder what the breadth of this survey is, how many people we're talking about. I see lots of quotes. I'm thinking that means there's a lot of people, but I am curious about sort of the number of people. It doesn't really matter to me, a person's hurt is a person's hurt, but I'm just curious about it. I'm curious about, I think the survey questions listed at the beginning are all of the survey questions, but I'm curious about whether there were questions. There are quotes that document positive experiences that people commented on, but I don't see a survey question that asked for positive, you know, when have been times that you have been felt seen or heard, or that this community has been welcoming to you or anything like that. So I just wonder, I appreciate that there are the positive comments, and I wonder how we got to them when that wasn't part of the survey questions that I see. And what was my other thought? My sense is that there was a real attempt at curating the responses to provide, with the intention of providing a breadth of all of the information that was received. I don't feel that it was curated towards a specific angle. My sense is that it was curated to really bring a smattering of all of the different perspectives that were received, and so I appreciate that. I think that when people tell their stories, it would be really hard. Like I feel like other members of this community wouldn't be so hurt by hearing the pain of MAPA people if they didn't also feel that there was some targeting of them. And I understand that when you ask people to tell their stories are going to have within them elements of specificity about communities or people. I think that names were left out of this report, but I know people are saying that they were targeted in it. So I was looking back through to see, I guess maybe like, because a certain situation is mentioned and people know who was involved in that situation, that means people were targeted, but I don't quite understand, but I do feel like there's a benefit to telling stories without name calling or calling people out, because I really do believe people can experience the same exact thing and have very different perspectives on what it was that happened, and that they're all telling the truth. They're both telling the truth. And so all of that is background, and I'm going to return to what I said I was going to do, which is talk about the recommendations. And I appreciate that you heard feedback from both public comment and the commission last time and made some changes to the recommendations. I think that was very respectful of everybody's time sharing their feedback. And my only real question about the recommendations is whether, and I heard Ellie say too, that like we carefully worded these, and so please don't nitpick the wording, and I hear you. And I'm just saying out loud the idea of the number 2, commitment to solidarity by the city of Davis. Some of the emails that we received mentioned, but what exactly does that mean? And so I guess the only thing I want to put out there is I also don't, I mean, I have a sense in my heart that I know what solidarity means, but I'm wondering what is intended by that, or how you, my concern is that maybe the council won't know exactly what that would look like in action. And I think that was plenty from me for right now.
Very helpful. Thank you, Lainey, and then go to Edgar.
Okay, excuse me. So I want to recognize the fact that when I went through the whole report, there was definitely some of the testimonials, I was like, ooh, that could be pretty contentious, right? There were some that I was like, you know, these might pinpoint certain people, it might upset certain people. You know, but what I also realized is that there was a lot of people surveyed. And in my honest opinion, I don't need a critical mass. You know, I just need a few examples. We've had people who have come to HRC meetings, a single individual who come and brought up an issue. And we've taken it on and we've formed subcommittees from a single person representing a single topic that they felt marginalized. And we took it forward and we discussed it at length. And we thought about it and we took it on. To me, when I look at these very specific recommendations, what makes me nervous is that if we don't support it, then what I'm saying is that I don't acknowledge that there's anti-MAPA discrimination in Davis. Number 2, I don't acknowledge that there's a commitment to free speech. Number 3, we don't commit that the city manager or previous city staff should reach out to set up meetings. Number 4, that we don't commit to anti-Palestinian racism and anti-Muslim bias to training for our staff and council. Number 5, that we don't commit to request from the city for Davis DJUSD superintendent to acknowledge and release a statement on MAPA discrimination in Davis. And number 6, that we don't commit to request from the city for the UCD administration to acknowledge and release a statement on MAPA discrimination in Davis. Now, the way I look at it is replace MAPA with any marginalized community in this town. And guess what? I'm gonna support it. Because no one should be treated like this. You know, we're all gonna have different accounts. But I can't say that there's no discrimination against any of these communities in this town. If one person can come to our HRC meeting, where we used to have no one ever come to our meetings, and bring up one issue. It was an issue on disability. And we took it on and we addressed it. Then for me, these recommendations in its entirety and in its own entity are doing a justice that does not harm anything. It just addresses something. And it just poses some solutions for something. And again, replace MAPA with any marginalized community, and I will be behind it.
Thank you.
Because I see that there's obviously a lot of mixed feelings about the report itself. However, I'm wondering if we can just look at these recommendations. And yes, acknowledge that, yes, we need to support our Jewish community. We need to support all members of our community. And I'm, like Edward was saying, I'm wondering if anybody has issues with the specific content of these resolutions. Or whether we can move forward with like the rights that all people should. That, but I think you get my.
I think we did, thank you, sir. Amir.
So first of all, I would like to say that I like Edgar's suggestion. I think that making it more generalized would make, I think everybody want to support that. And I also want to, you know, just give maybe one example so that people understand what are the things that really hurt me when I read that report. Right? So just one of the testimonials, and I'm just reading. The so-called angry Zionist, in parentheses, a term my husband and I used to take in the members and the allies of the so-called October 7th coalition, are relentless in their messaging and bullying. For example, this morning at the farmer's market, my husband saw and reported to me that some of these folks were harassing the Muslim group that has a table at the market. Right? So, am I an angry Zionist? I think that in some people's eye, I am an angry Zionist. And I actually know that booth at the farmer's market. I know what they do. So there is, as many of us know, we look at the same reality and we see two completely different things. And we need to figure out how to cross that bridge, because we need to be able to live together in this town. And so that both suffering and pain are being handled not by pointing the other group and blaming for our suffering, but somehow get to talk about that and figure out how do we live together in this town. That doesn't make me feel part of this town. If this is a resolution or a report that's going to go up to city council, I feel excluded. I feel pointed at, blamed.
Thank you. Mayor Kelly, please.
I just want to quickly answer two of Lainey's questions. One of them is we did redact all names of individuals, not of like general groups. And then the second question you had was about, or one of the questions you had was about the second recommendation. And so we chose to define kind of like demonstrating solidarity specifically around this commitment to free speech. So that's how that's what we meant by requires a commitment to explain that political non-hate speech is protected. So I think there are many ways that you can demonstrate solidarity, but specifically we are asking for this idea around protected speech.
So Lainey, I see that you're still looking at the presentation and the report. So what's in the recommendation now, number 2 is quite different. So it's actually commitment to free speech, including speech advocating for justice for Palestine and the Palestinian people. It no longer is saying kind of wording that you were followers fake.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, Connor, I think we have not heard from you, so please, you have the floor, and then I think we will.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is still that what we'd be recommending to council is just the recommendations as opposed to the report itself. And as Edgar was saying, I support these recommendations for all marginalized groups, and I would not really need I would not need the report to support these recommendations. I think these are good recommendations, and they're good recommendations for all marginalized groups because we know that Davis is not a bubble, and we have systemic oppression of all types in Davis, the same way that such things exist everywhere. So I would certainly favor having these types of recommendations for any community and group, like the Jewish community, the trans community, the undocumented community. At the moment, we have these recommendations around the Napa community because that is the subcommittee that formed, because anyone on the commission is able to form a subcommittee. And this is the set of recommendations that they brought forward. So I think these should be supported for that community. And if we were to have very similar or identical recommendations for other communities in the future, I would support those as well.
Thank you, Connor. I'm gonna see if there's any final comments, but seeing none, I think we are at a close on our discussion. There is a motion on the floor to adopt the recommendations. And I'm just gonna ask then for, you have a,
Just a point of clarification, so what Connor said, is that true, that just the recommendations, no good, the report does not?
well, I think there will be one of the recommendations. Is there not a reference to it? Yeah, okay. Yes. Thank you for the clarification. That is not the case. That is the case.
Well, I mean, okay. I think we should have a conversation about it. I think the report provides context. And many people have said this, that you might not like what the report says, you might not agree with what people feel, but this is what people feel. Whether it's one person, 1,000 people, this is what they feel. We did a qualitative survey, and we did qualitative work where we actually talked to people, we gathered information. A lot because this community is very scared to speak up. So there's that, but also there's just there's low numbers in this community, so we did not do quantitative. We have shown that through this qualitative analysis, this is the sentiment of a group of people, whether that's 2 people or 1,000 people, that's the sentiment. I think that the context is needed, but what we are not asking the city council to do is bless this report. They don't need to bless the report. They don't need to say they agree with the report or that they like every comment that's in the report. They need to read the report for context and understand in a larger context how this community feels in Davis. And then what they're actually acting on is not the report, but the recommendations. But I think to provide just the recommendations without the context that the report report provides leaves them in a place where they're not as strong in their footing in voting to do these things. So I would recommend that the report is provided as context, but it's the recommendations that they work on.
I believe before you get to number one, if everything lines up to right under where it's recommendation, it says receive the subcommittee report. So to me, that implies that we are sending the subcommittee report to city council, but all they're doing is receiving it, and then what they would be acting on, what our actual recommendations are the 6 that are done.
Thank you. Okay.
So I would like to propose that can we change those recommendations to, instead of anti-MAPA, we change it to marginalized communities, wherever appropriate.
I think this is supposed to reflect a set of recommendations reflecting information that was collected by this committee on this issue.
Can I just clarify, Amir, was that a friendly amendment that you were suggesting to the motion? I want to make sure that we reflect it accurately in the minutes.
Yes, that was something that I was proposing, that we amend the recommendations.
Okay, and Kevin as the motioner and Ellie as the seconder, I guess you'd have to decide if you want to accept or not accept the friendly amendment.
Yeah, we're gonna stick with I'm sticking with the motion. Okay, I'm gonna pick up on Sawyer's suggestion now and ask that we bring this to a close, and we have a motion in front of us. I'm sorry, Edgar.
I just want to make one more comment. I mean, like, out of respect, just to how one of our own commissioners feels targeted in this report. I would feel, well, there was a description of, if someone had a description of me in this report. So like I want to move forward with this. I want to move forward with, all of the anti-MAPA stuff. I feel like just there may be, like I said in the very beginning, when I spoke earlier, there were certain things that I was a little concerned about, how certain people may have been targeted or feel like they were targeted within the report. Is there an opportunity to maybe remove some of those, not all of them, just maybe a couple that bother individuals, especially the people in the commission, and then move as is?
I appreciate the suggestion, but it's not about me. I am mentioned here, not me, but a few times, but it's about the counter anti-Semitism group, it's about people that are working at the booth, and it's the overall sentiment that a certain community is being targeted and being pointed at.
I don't think we want to be in the position of trying to amend the report on the fly, and I don't know that anyone could tell us what the universe of possibilities is. I, for instance, was contacted today by someone who was who thought they had been identified, and I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to." And then they directed me to a part of the report, and I did not know that that part of the report was about that person in any way. They believe that it is, and they were concerned about that. But when they pointed me to it, I was unsure and like could not have concluded that there was that this story was about that person. And I just don't know how you potentially address all of the possibilities where somebody thinks they might be involved. So, and I don't want to undertake that type of. Ellen, did you want to?
Sorry, two things. One, we are again coming up on our extended period of time. And there are still so many things that I really wish for us to discuss, unfortunately. So, you can blame it on me. I wanted to make a motion to extend our time to 10. If we can. And the second thing I've seen hands in, some of our members of the public, I don't know if we want to reopen public comment before we vote, is that something that we? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think, for my perspective, we have had ample comment, both written and oral, over the course of 2 meetings. So I would not be inclined to do that at this late hour. Do take your suggestion that we need to extend the time of do any other business this evening. But there is a motion on the
I
floor.
second.
And, no, hold on, the motion that's on the floor is the motion to approve the recommendations.
Oh,
That has been seconded by Ellie. And what I'm suggesting is that we
Take care of that.
we take care of that and then we address Felix's wise suggestion. So without further ado, the motion on the floor is to move forward with the recommendations and the, as Dean says, the receipt of the report as content. And I will ask for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed, Amir. Abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you very much. So committee, I'd like to, if you can just hold that, pick up on Felix's suggestion. I think it was in the form of a motion. I think I heard a second. All those in favor of extending our time until 10 o'clock, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Amir, you want to direct this?
Yes. At the minimum, I think that the report, if it to move on to the council, should have a representation of a minority opinion along with it, so it's not reflected as if this report represents the HRC at all.
Not sure how you're proposing to accomplish that.
I propose that whoever is on a minority opinion, in that case myself, I was the church, I think that I was the only one voting against that, would you write a document to a pen that would go with the report and the recommendations, so that city council can see that, that there are different views amongst this commission.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Absolutely. At any number.
But are we, okay, so the point of the commission meeting here and discussing this is to vote as a commission, and what ends up getting majority vote moves forward. I am trying to understand, Amir, what you were asking for. Are you asking for the commission in the packet that goes to the city council to include something specific from you? Because the problem with that would be that we haven't voted on that.
No, hold on. I think we just clarified that Amir has the right to do that as an individual, but that's not a commission action.
I completely agree as an individual. I thought you were saying that as a commission, we would include this.
I didn't mean to give you that impression.
So I want that to be included as part of, we're submitting something to city council. I do not want to write to city council as a member of the community like anyone else, but I want to write in my position as a commissioner, part of this commission. I want to reflect that the commission is not unanimous about that, and I want to reflect some of my concern as a commission.
My understanding, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you are free to write to the commission, to the council, and I think they welcome all public input. And you are free to identify yourself as a commissioner for the purposes of identification. I think there are limits on when one speaks, as if they were speaking for the commission. But you are, I think, please, someone correct me, I think you're absolutely free to contact the city council, identify yourself as a member of the Human Relations Commission for identification, and
I think that
share your concerns.
At the minimum that you can do as a commission is to include my voice in that report, even if in spite of the fact that it was adopted by majority, including a minority opinion is the minimum that this commission can do.
Well, I believe that the minutes for this particular meeting right now will reflect that you voted against the motion, right? So is that not a public record of an opposition to anything that we move forward?
Is there
City
any,
Council?
like, from city employees, is there any precedent for, it's like a Supreme Court dissenting opinion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, is there any precedent for that on the city council or, has this been seen before? It doesn't seem like this is the first time this would come up.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that, Lainey. I think what I'm hearing, Amir did not use the word that he's making a motion, but again, I want to make sure that we're accurately reflecting the meeting. So Amir, was that a motion or are you still just sort of contemplating discussion before you want to finalize your secondary motion to this item?
Not sure if it's a motion or not. I'm asking that my minority opinion would be a part of this report going up to city council, to reflect the discussion that we have and the fact that this is not a unanimous vote.
I guess what I can share with you, and I'm trying to think this through as any kind of recommendations that go forward to council have staff analysis that go along with them. And so that, and when I say staff, I don't mean just me, I mean, St. Andrew, et cetera. And as part of the report that goes with the recommendations, there would be mention of the motion within that report. So it wouldn't just be in the minutes, it would actually be in the report that goes with it. So that would also be an indicator of your dissent. And I know that's not getting exactly at what you were asking, but I just wanted to let you know that that will be part of it.
So whatever was said here is a very, in my mind, just scratches the surface. So I would like to, list my concerns in a more coherent fashion and, just systematically go and, express my concerns. And I think that that's, again, I think that that's the minimum that this commission can do to include the diverse voices of this commission.
I'm going to suggest that we move on, Amir, unless you want to make that motion. My answer is I still end up in the same place, which is that you are absolutely free and encouraged to do that.
So I would like to make a motion that I write a minority opinion that will be a part of this report and recommendation moving up to the city council.
For which you would have sole control?
Yes, because that's my minority opinion.
Is there a second for the motion?
I'm trying to understand how it would work because then would we have to, at our next meeting, potentially approve the language of that? And then would that push this back or would we just?
That's just so us as a commission, we approve these recommendations in this report as is. I am asking to put in my minority opinion, which you guys have you don't agree with it, obviously. So it's my words and they are added as a minority opinion.
I think my concern is that opens the door for anybody and everybody to.
I'm a commissioner, not anybody, right?
I mean, anybody and everybody's on the commission.
Yes.
Right, and I think that's a very troubling precedent. So is there a second for the motion? I'm not hearing one. I'm gonna move on.
I was just gonna ask, can we ask properly to see if that's ever been done, and if it has been done, then we can find out later, we can still move forward with this, if it's still moving, but then actually find out from city staff. I'm assuming, like ladies said, that this probably come up before. But I don't know. It sounds like we don't make that call, more up to like what's a precedent.
I think between the three of us up here, we actually don't have that information. Checking with one of our deputy city clerks, council member, former commissioner, and myself, who's sat on and commissions for many years now. So I apologize that I don't have an answer to if there is something like this and how it would work. But we can certainly look into it. That unfortunately won't be able to get that information to you this evening. I just don't want this to make us not be able to forward these recommendations until the end of May. right? And we're coming up against like summer break, and I think one of the things that came up in our research for me is the kind of like pressing matters that this is. Certainly, I think our national context right now is making this, I don't want these recommendations end up getting pushed off and then it's like September. So that's my big concern about us just like waiting and see.
So may I ask, what is the big concern of including my minority opinion, which are only mine? Why is everybody so concerned about that?
Can I make comments? I don't think there's any concern, at least I have no concern with you as an individual letting the city council know your dissent on this matter. I also think it's good that in the report from the city, it will be known that you voted against it. I think it creates, as Kevin said, a precedent that is concerning. If any time that this commission votes for something and someone has a dissent, we are giving them the opportunity to write, as you have said, whatever they want, whatever they're feeling, and putting that forward under the guise of it being somehow official with this commission. But the commission has done the conversation. We've gone through the work of deciding as a commission what should move forward. And that doesn't include this personal opinion that you would put in later. And so that just creates, I think, problems for future things. It creates a precedent that is problematic and doesn't allow for the commission to be aware of what's going forward under the guise of the commission's opinion.
Okay, I think we have debated this issue.
Can I say one more thing? I feel lucky that we have a city council member who is very reliable about attending our meetings and clearly like diligently paying attention. Is it reasonable to assume, Melinda, that you're hearing all of this right now and that you would be able to report this if we're not able to agree right now, to let there be like a dissenting opinion written, like, can you tell us that you hear this and that you're willing to like make sure that it's part of a conversation, if in fact the city council does have a conversation about this?
I mean, definitely I'm here and I've heard it and I would be reporting this back. I mean, the whole city council is going to be relying upon, they can come back and listen to the meeting, they can read the staff report. I hope we all will, the work you put into it, and the views of everybody will be reflected in that report. And I do know that individual commissioners can come as speaking on behalf of themselves to express their perspective on yay or nay or whatever. As a commissioner in the past, I've done both. When something has come up from a commission that I was in the minority on, I came and spoke about that. And when I'm in the majority, I've spoken about that as well. So it's gone both ways. I don't know about any precedent about doing an addendum to something. I understand that a motion was brought forward to that point, and I did not hear a second to Amir's motion. So right at this point, I believe that is not there. I don't think, did I hear a second? Okay. So yes, it is going to be reflected because it's going to be some time potentially before this even comes to the city council. So we all are going to be going back and looking at the report and things that have happened, and including my own recollection, the notes that I've been taking. So I can assure each of you that you have been heard, and that the folks here in the community who have spoken have been heard as well, and that will be reflected to the city council at that point of time when this comes before the city council. So I'll leave it at that because I can't speak for anybody else on the council. And I thank both of the staff here for what you're doing to try to memorialize this as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councilmember. Okay, let us move on then to item D. We've got 20 minutes left. I don't know what committee updates there may be, but we're going to try to complete those we've allotted 10 minutes, so 20 ought to be plenty at least to get through those and the future agenda items, long range calendar, one of which we've already added, I think. Let's run down the list. Campus Council on Community Diversity. No idea. Okay. City holiday observances.
No update, but I believe we would like to meet again soon. Ideas that we'll share next time.
Okay, thank you, Lainey and committee members. Cesar Chavez celebration coming up. We're all very excited. I'm sorry, civil rights. Yes. That is, I'm trying to focus on those. So the committee has prepared a draft complaint form for consideration by the full commission under the commission's authorities as set forth in the city's civil rights ordinance. But we've been advised, I think, that by staff that further staff discussions are needed before that document could be presented to the commission for discussion. And Carrie, do you have any update on that?
No, we'll update, other than it's gonna take a bit of time that we just didn't have this week to get to really think through processes, how it would all work, what kind of mechanisms would be needed in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll need to work through a lot of that and make communication with the city manager about it.
Okay, thank you for that. There's also the outstanding issue of the recommendations that we made to council on the ordinance, but let's skip that for now and move to the Cesar Chavez celebration committee that I was so excited to get to. And this is Connor and Dima and Edwin. Who would like to give us?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just kind of do a brief report back. It is this Saturday from 10 to 12. We have our speakers lined up. We have our performers lined up. It's going to be at Central Park. It will potentially rain that night, so wear boots, bring a raincoat. Hopefully it's not like last year where it got fully rained out. You know, we would love as much community support out there as possible. I don't know, I think I need to go through the whole list of speakers, or should I? No, okay. We're good. It's gonna be a great event. You know, we want to encourage people to come out. We want people to bring out their families and yeah, experience our annual celebration.
Well, thank you to the committee. Really looking forward to that. It's always a great event, and I think this year is going to be even better. Okay, let's move on then. This is researching ways to report hate events. And just for those of you who are in the audience, I'm going to just ask for public comment on these items at the end of this. We're not taking any votes or anything, but we do appreciate public comment. So we'll do that at the end. This is Connor, Felix. Any update from that?
Not really. Like I said earlier, it obviously ties into some of the other conversations tonight. So maybe there will be further things around the original committees, like task, but also related things in the future.
Right, okay, good, thank you, Connor. We've had the MAPA committee report. I don't think there's any other update. That we move on then to investigating and documenting incidents of anti-Semitism and discrimination in the city. Is there a report from this committee?
Okay, so Edgar and Amir, feel free to add in. We have met this week. We plan to continue to meet. Our primary goal initially, we debated what we were going to do with this subcommittee, and we decided to really focus on doing something positive, which was trying to work with the city to figure out what would be an event that, the HRC could support for, celebrating Jewish American Heritage Month. That event has been endorsed by the HRC and now endorsed by, the city council. So we are very happy to continue to advertise and support that event. And it is coming together nicely with lots of food and dancing and music and activities for kids. And do you want to give me an update about the organizing meeting? Okay. My understanding is that the organizing group has expanded to some degree and that they're continuing to meet and plan. And we are trying to decide what to do next. And there seems to be lots of requests from the community to create a document similar to what we've seen tonight for the MAPA community. There has been already a fair amount of documenting of anti-Semitism by people in the Jewish community, as well as by the HRC over a year ago when we did a lot of interviewing sort of soon after October 7th. And so there is already sort of a lot of information available to us, although of course that's not exactly like interviews like what we've seen. So at our recent meeting, we were not planning to proceed with doing that kind of documentation because there already are some mechanisms for doing documentation, but we continue to hear that need from the community. So I imagine we'll continue to talk about that. We do want to continue with more positive ways to bring Jewish culture and heritage and the Jewish American experience into positive light in Davis. And we've talked about things that overlap with other subcommittees, like the possibility of having a city put a menorah up during Hanukkah, which many other cities do, and which we haven't done in Davis yet. And maybe doing other things to recognize Jewish important days in the Jewish calendar. But we haven't gotten further than that in determining what our next steps are, but we do continue to plan to meet and figure out how to continue to make headway. So I think that's the update unless you guys want to add it.
Thank you, Lainey, and to all the members of the committee for that good work. Okay, let's move on then to the next committee, Sanctuary City. This is Felix, Connor, Lainey, and Keystone.
Yeah, we recently met and we discussed ways to add or amend the resolution that is currently in place, last reaffirmed in 2021. It's difficult because the climate is just ever changing, and so it's hard to really put a put your foot on exactly what it is that we need to address. We discussed extending sanctuary policies to not just include immigrant groups who are obviously being targeted at this time, but also kind of following in the example of other cities such as San Francisco, such as Sacramento, El Cerrito, in becoming sanctuaries for other marginalized groups such as the LGBTQ plus community, people seeking gender affirming care, reproductive care, people with disabilities, and so we talked about making the language more inclusive to reflect different marginalized groups that may be seeking asylum or sanctuary rather here in the city of Davis, and to really show that we are not just a sanctuary but a welcoming city to all, and continue that great work that the city of Davis has been doing to promote that. We talked about creating or adding to the agenda for an upcoming meeting this item specifically so that we can have members of the community come and speak to us and share with us their thoughts on how we can address this. And so we really just wanted to put that on a future agenda item and hopefully make it so that we can have a meeting where we're mostly focusing on this item because it's a large topic to address, and just inviting and possibly putting out some press to invite members of the community to have this forum and really have a variety of voices be heard and really assist us in better informing our city council on what to do when it comes to reaffirming our sanctuary city status.
Interesting. Felix, just for clarification, it sounds like maybe the committee is suggesting some kind of public forum but as part of our kind of regular meeting with a kind
Yeah,
of
we thought-
focus on this issue.
Yeah, we thought it would be important this is a really important issue, and we thought it would be great to kind of bring it back to the whole committee, the whole commission rather, and making it available to the public for them to come and join us in taking part of creating this.
Okay. We just open it up for discussion, but let me just check with Carrie. I know this is an issue with some urgency, at least I believe it has some urgency. And I'm wondering, Carrie, if we might, do you have a sense of whether we're going to find time in our May agenda for this? And maybe is it an hour or something, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think an hour would be appropriate.
I don't know if we got anything time pressing that this can take precedence over if we wanted to bring that sort of to the top, if that's the commission's desire to do that.
Yeah, what do folks think?
Just a comment, I think that would be amazing to dedicate some time to this, because we've all been saying this is a very, very urgent topic to discuss. So I would definitely be for having this be a large portion of our time next time. I also just wanted to know, in the meantime, I mentioned this last time, but I actually have now been in a couple meetings with the Culture Community Teams, it's a group being put on by Davis Phoenix Coalition, bringing a lot of people together to discuss many key topics that are important in this current time, one of them being immigration. They have a very, very strong team working on immigration. So, and not just the leaders, but the people who are, it's structured as such that there are a couple of leaders, but there are many people kind of working every day on these matters. And I think it would be good to have the subcommittee just bring those folks in and talk to them too. But if that doesn't work out, I would imagine those would be people that would show up and have a lot to share.
Yeah, absolutely. We've identified different organizations and groups within the community that are working on this. And we have not just groups that are working on this subject, but also reaching out to law enforcement, reaching out to our sister commission, correct, the Police Accountability Commission, and we sort of each have, members of the subcommittee have our work cut out for reaching out to some of these different agencies to one, to invite them to be present at this discussion, but also to reach out to them and really get some information about what it is that we can discuss during our next meeting.
That's great. Awesome.
So can we say that we will make time on this for our next agenda? So we are inviting people to know that this is what's likely to be on our next agenda. And if anybody wanted to be, anybody can come and give public comment on this issue, but if anybody was particularly informed from Culture of Community or an immigration lawyer, anybody who wanted to be a speaker, that they would communicate with you or with us about that possibility?
Yeah, I think the subcommittee would determine if you wanted to have speakers as part of your presentation. We would just need to know all that ahead of time, and that's actually what I was gonna say, is that any sort of formal presentation, if you're gonna have anything that's shown, we need to have that in the packet, especially if it's something that you're gonna be asking the commission to take action on. So I know that makes it a little bit more challenging for the subcommittee, and that you've got a shorter deadline, because I'll need it please the Wednesday or Thursday before, so I can just take a look at it and then make sure it's included. If it's gonna be more of a, sort of a verbal update, then that's okay as well. But if you are gonna have specific people from the community come and be a part of it, you know, council does have that, and then they come up and they do their presentation into the podium, which is fine. It would just be good to note that so that we can make sure that the agenda reflects accurately who all is gonna be participating.
And Gary, you're touching on an interesting issue, or one way I think we should maybe clarify, which is, would it be the committee's thought that there would be a potential action item on the agenda at that point? Or are we really soliciting ideas and having a discussion? I mean,
What we talked about was doing a little bit of presenting about what we've already thought about. And then just using it as an opportunity to solicit information. I don't think there would be any action. I think we're really looking for community input as to like really thinking outside of the box about how our city could be a sanctuary city in a more like dynamic and meaningful way. And so I think we're really just at the information gathering stage now, unless you guys are.
Great, thank you for the clarification and all the good work, really timely and important issue. All right, let's complete our reports on the committees, and we've got the webpage, last but not least.
Okay, I'll just give a quick update. So we do have a document that we're working on that sort of looks at the different web pages that are available for various commissions. We have some ideas that we put on there. We haven't had an opportunity to meet. This has all been sort of async, just sharing it and communicating over email. We know that there's going to be a new webpage coming up, so understanding that will be helpful. I think we're kind of waiting on that, but because we know that a new webpage is coming up, we just are looking at what we think would fit within the functionality of the current page, not something, you know, beyond what the current pages seem that they can do. And there are some pretty small things that I think we all agree on could be added to the webpage to keep people aware, like change in time and things like that. But we still have we still need to meet so that we can formalize that. It could be possible next time, but I don't want to necessarily promise that. But could we say that if we were to have like a presentation that sort of goes through the web pages, I guess I don't know if we want to do it during the one where we're going to have a 60-minute conversation about Sanctuary City, and I don't feel like this is pressing in the same way that is. But at some point, we will want to do like a quick presentation on what we're seeing on the website, what we're seeing on other pages, and what we think could be added with the current functionality. And then at another time, once we've talked to the people who are building the new webpage, have some comments for that separately.
The only recommendation that I would make is maybe check in with city staff, or you can check with me and I'll find the appropriate city staff to see what kinds of things, you know, the people that oversee our web pages are looking at for what can be included, so that we make sure that we're just being as efficient as possible, I think. So we certainly can arrange for the subcommittee to talk with whoever that might be, that I'll figure out.
That would be great, because I think some of the things that we are finding would be helpful. Having that sort of pre-built into whatever this new website is going to have would be great. So it's not a trying to go back and build it in. And they're really, really they're not exceptionally new or novel things. But just having it built when you already have a team building the website would be good, and it's not asked for later.
Okay, that's great. Why don't we arrange a meeting with city staff that's working on that, so that you guys can go into it with that information and then come back here with a sort of a fuller picture, maybe?
That would be amazing. And then we wouldn't have to do a presentation this next time, but probably in the one after. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dina, and all the members of the committee for their good work on the webpage review. We are almost right at 10 o'clock. We have the final item is future agenda items, long range calendar. I think we noted a couple.
Public comment, please, Kevin.
Oh, yes, thank you. Goodness, I'm so grateful for my colleagues. I'm sorry. I'm going to open up a public comment on the committee updates that we've just discussed? Is there anyone who would like to provide?
one last.
Yes,
Progress,
please.
would you please?
Yes.
Yes, I really believe in power of voice, and Amir, I can see that you're disheartened, and I know as a minority, I've been in your shoes. And so I empower you to write that letter and submit that because your voice matters. But I don't think that any of this is to exclude anyone who's hurting. I think the message here is that Davis is hurting. There is all sorts of hate going around, and we have to do something about it, including anti-Semitism. So I hope we have more dialogues. Thank you.
Very well said, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, anybody else then for public comment on this item? Before we turn briefly to future agenda items, long-range calendar, and I'm gonna hold the clock in suspense just to note that I think we've added a couple items tonight. Is there anyone else who would like to just future agenda items? Hearing none, maybe it's just exhaustion. Thank you. We have now.
The process, like our process with the city council and everything, we've got that sort of on the long range calendar to discuss that at some point. Will we be able to bring up things like, is there such a thing, is there a dissenting opinion, and like, how does our process with the city council work for adding?
Yes, and I sent you guys the documents because we haven't been able to get to it. That just, lays out the process, and it's still, it's still new, so I think we're all still figuring it out. My general understanding is, as you pointed out, Lainey, if it's something within your purview already, then you can go ahead for that. So I just want to note for long range that in May, you've got kind of a lengthy item that you want to talk about for Sanctuary City. And then for unidentified date, we might have a webpage review. And then we also have the discussion on issues of hate incidences on DGSD campuses and beyond. Maybe some sort of presentation around that. And then also potentially a conversation to see what kind of engagement with Hate Free Together there could be surrounding the presentation we had tonight, etc. So.
Okay, and we're gonna let Terry have the last word unless anybody, no, Connor wants to have the last word, please.
So kind of related to Lainey's question, and unfortunately our council liaison just left. Has there been any discussion among the council or staff or both of bringing back the formal meetings between the council and the commission that used to happen periodically? Also, I'm assuming we do need public comment on this item too.
Connor, Lisa, have you actually heard anything about commission council meetings? Okay, so we've not heard anything about that. And yes, public comment on this item.
Terry has just opened the floor for public comment on this item. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Mr. Miller.
Alan Miller. It seems to me that there's something unique about this commission in that maybe unlike the planning commission or whatever, where there is a majority opinion, and then that's what is decided. But here, you're actually looking out for the rights of minorities and marginalized people. So it seems to me that the minority opinion is really as important as the majority opinion. It may not be what moves forward, but that's kind of what you're all about. And so I think it would behoove you to have a long-range have an agenda item in the future where you discuss how the minority opinion is expressed. And I was thinking, with the Supreme Court, whatever the court decides is what moves forward. But if there is also a minority opinion, that opinion is also recorded and widely distributed and heard by the public nationwide. And that might be a model for your commission. Thank you.
All right. There's no one else then with public comment. We are adjourned.
I'll stay to the bitter end.
Thank you.